Welcome everyone to a community Chrono Trigger race. Today we have 6 people on Team Slash. We have Red Slash and Foxlisk. On Team Flea we have Drunken Draconian and 840 Riggs. For Team Aussie we have Halation 1 and Keat Ketchum. So the top screens are going to be running a route called Yes LSS. It involves skipping Lavos Shell and going directly to Inner Lavos. On the bottom, they're running NoLSS, which means basically they will be fighting the Lavos Shell. The criteria is the teams have to have both runners finished to be declared the winner. On commentary, we have Silent Martyr and It's Trinton. Now, if all runners are ready, we'll do a countdown and be on our way. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Good luck, runners, and I'll leave you in the capable hands of our commentary.
Hello, friends. Good afternoon to all of you. There's been plenty of hype in chat before we even got started. Y'all are feeling it. Silent Martyr, I'm feeling it too. How about yourself?
I am excited. It's always great to get another Chrono community event going. Everybody loves it. So let's enjoy these. We don't get to see a lot of the Lavos Shell Skip runs, so it's going to be cool to see them mirrored against the NoLSS run.
Yeah, this is quite the roster of runners that we have. These are all very familiar names if you've watched Chrono Trigger speedruns, so no one's a stranger to what's going on, even if maybe they picked up don't commonly run one route or the other, but very familiar with the base game that they will be playing. Noteworthy is that these are any percent rules, so we'll see glitches going on all over the place and highlight some of those as we go along, but first thing you always want to do in a speedrun is, of course, get the lunch money.
Yep, we'll have some of the runners changing their control scheme around for later, and some of them will choose to change the control scheme at that point, which will be in the future when we have the Guardian Skip. But that's a while from now, so we won't have to go too deep into that. But that's all we're seeing with the early menuing from these guys.
Yeah, there's also some slight shenanigans with the names in that we're reducing them all to one character because you may notice that these Square Enix RPGs, they love to draw the text. They're going that one letter at a time. So we save frames over the course of the run by having it just be one character that you're drawing instead of the multiple. And a couple of our runners have also done some custom backgrounds for their text boxes just to amuse chat. So chat, hopefully you are properly amused.
I mean, if we're not amusing chat, what are we even doing?
Enjoying Chrono Trigger?
I mean, we're always doing that, aren't we? At least I know I am.
Well, we try. As Riggs there hit Candy Skip, most people are trying it, not everyone has gotten it. As I understand it, you're going to get the scene either way, but as I understand it, it's slightly faster to get Candy Skip and have the scene on your return trip.
Yeah, it's not a, huge lead amount of time change, but it's a favorable thing to do if you have the opportunity. And I'm no surprise that the current NG Plus record holder is the only one who successfully Candy Skip. That's pretty solid.
And for those who don't know, in New Game Plus, it would be essential because you don't return. You come right up to this screen, and there's a portal that goes straight to Lavos in New Game Plus, so that's basically the run.
Yeah, Candy Skip is, the most important thing in that run. So it's always cool to see it in this run. With the any percent, there's not really a lot of that opportunity otherwise, because it's been theorized that you can Candy Skip all the way through any percent, but it's so dangerous because if you don't skip back correctly, because you have to basically do a reverse Candy Skip on the way back to keep it from happening again, you'll get a soft lock. And that's obviously not ideal for speedrun purposes.
So we get through this early screen. Another fun fact, if you never realized this in just casual playthrough, Chrono doesn't have to actually use the telepod. You can just go right over and talk to Marley, and she'll say, "Oh wow, that was amazing! I want to try it."
It sure was. Well, to answer chat, Silverbane specifically, since we're doing 2 separate categories, yeah, it'll be roughly between 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on which runner. Because as we said at the start, this is 2 different categories being run at the same time by the different runners, so it won't be very obvious until very late. The actual strategies between the 2 runs are almost mirrored up until I believe Tyranno is when it starts to really deviate significantly. There's like a few random small things, minor things earlier on, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same.
We're going to see the first fruits of the labor of the menuing that they've already done. One of the important things was to set up cursor memory, and now once that is enabled, you can use the menu button to attack by default regardless of what you're menued to, and that's something that becomes very important, especially as you need text throughout. Also, there's another thing going on in the background, which is the runners want to manipulate their RNG. So, Silent Martyr, you want to talk about the manip a little bit?
Sure. So the way that the RNG is controlled in this game is through the save menu. Well, not the save menu, but the screen where you have your save files, and it's linked to a board, a hex board. And these numerical values rotate as the longer you stay in the save menu screen. So basically what we're doing is making sure that we know these values, and the game has been figured out from start to finish with these values. So we know every encounter, exactly what's going to happen, as long as the script is you stay on the script evenly, which is very hard to do. Admittedly so I would not be surprised if we have some deviation and some runners having to do backups or resets to get back to it. But yeah, we'll talk a lot as the run goes at specific points where the RNG is very important to be held. A lot of the boss fights, it's very important.
Another thing that's going to be very important over the course of the run, I like to refer to it as encounter avoidance. There's very few encounters in the game that are just going to drop down out of nowhere. In fact, really, there's none. We know where every encounter of the game is positioned and what triggers them. So to the extent that we can avoid them, our runners will be doing that throughout. So in the early goings, they went through that forest. They didn't get any encounters. I believe everybody was successful with bird skip and getting past that first encounter. We'll talk about that more when we go back through. And we'll just be doing that throughout. Our runners are going to avoid those random encounters that we don't need. But there's going to be a couple here in just a little bit.
Yeah, a lot to extrapolate on that further. The encounters are triggered by like sensors in the game, in the ground. So like when you walk over certain parts, that will activate the encounter. So we know where all these spots are in the game and can walk around them, or sometimes we'll use text boxes to skip them. There's a few different tricks we use to get as few encounters as possible. And because of that, it puts the characters at a very low level, health, stats, everything, which makes most of the boss battles very important to stay on the script that we were talking about, because you're so weak in comparison to like the actual normal point in the game where you should be power-wise, that it's hard to deviate and not just get wiped.
Also, I hope everyone is taking notes on this completely accurate biology lesson. There will be a quiz later.
Also, the very correct time-traveling butterfly effect science.
Sure.
I mean, I think we all double majored in science and English, so.
Now we basically reach the point where the game is in our control. The rest of this is almost like an intro up to this point, and now we're finally able to really play the game. And for Riggs, of course, he got the candy skip earlier. Here, he's the first one to get into this fight with the Rolly Riders. There's going to be 2 fights that they want here. And in particular, this is to get techs. And the use of good techs is a big part of what makes the run. So, what tech are we trying to get here?
We're going for Fire World. Well, specifically, we're going for Cyclone and Fire Toss. But what we really need is the dual tech Fire World. And we get that with these 2 encounters. We get just enough tech points to get it unlocked. And it's crucial for the upcoming Naga-Et fight, because the Naga-Ets have a attack that casts slow on you, and there's no real easy way to deal with that status effect this early on in the game. You don't get any heals yet. And obviously in a speedrun going slow is not ideal, but just even casually, that fight can get super dangerous if you get slowed by, if both your characters get slowed. So it's very, very important to finish this fight very quickly, and using Fire World will do that, as we'll see in a couple of seconds here.
I also want to point out, back when we first got into this era, and that's what I'm going to refer to all the 9 periods as, they picked up a Power Glove. Obviously, when we know what we're doing, the treasure pickups are going to be limited. That one specifically is in part to set up the equipment glitch, which we'll of course get into more when the runners are doing it, but it's a pretty important pickup that you do this early.
Yeah, the accessories in this game are not like super overpowered for the most part. There are a couple at the end game, but for the most part they're pretty mediocre and aren't super there are a lot of other RPGs that have like way more important and overpowered ones, and like for the most part in Chrono Trigger we're not going to be super worried about what we have equipped in the accessory slot until the absolute late game, except for the Berserker, which we will talk about in the future.
And we get our 4th character technically has now appeared. We've never had 3 in the party until now, but Glenn shows up to save the day. And we will happily welcome him to the team and finally be able to use a full party.
One thing that is nice about Chrono Trigger for the speedrun perspective is the characters that join the party they come in at a locked level. So if you're under leveled because you didn't do anything yet, like we have, Frog is super powerful in comparison right now, and kind of lean on him for the other fights that we have to do up until Yakra Skip.
Also, I hope everyone enjoyed that Naga-Et fight, because it's the only one we're doing here. More on that in a minute, but there's plenty of important treasures here. Grabbing a tab along the way, some weapons to improve things.
Just a lot of the same stuff we were talking about, where we're just avoiding these encounters by not, actively bumping into any of the sprites on screen or running over any of the invisible floor triggers that will, unlock an encounter. That heal is a very important heal that Riggs just grabbed. You don't know it now, but at the end of the run, that is one of the most important items, and I lost many a run because I forgot to grab that, so...
To answer a question that came up in chat, because we did just see it again when Glenn joined, they renamed the characters because whenever the character's name is being mentioned in the dialogue, it'll be faster, and because these Square games draw it one character at a time, we end up saving a significant chunk of time over the course of the run by having those shorter names.
It looks like due to a unfortunate, I don't know if it was a misclick or what happened with Riggs, but he didn't have the optimal Naga F fight. So looks like Red and Halation are pretty much neck and neck right now. If they're not synced, it's frames away, which is pretty dope. Because now we're getting to see the Yakra Skip, which is the first fade out that we do in the run. Fade out is when if your party enters a transition from room to room, when the screen goes black, you can actually still enter the menu. And if you exit the menu and do a little bit movement and go back into the menu, the game doesn't actually ever stop trying to transition you into the next room. So if you carry this transition trigger to a save trigger where the save point is, and then let the transition happen, you are allowed is the wrong word, but the game doesn't understand and thinks that you are always on a save trigger. And we're allowed to save at any point in the game as long as this is active. And it's only deactivated when we come into a room with a save point. So in this next room, as we're seeing some of the other runners doing right now, if you save right at the trigger on the floor for when the Yakra fight starts, and then save the game and reload the save, the game will think that your characters, because they are past that point, will think that the fight's already triggered. And then you can do all this movement that they're doing to text box cancel. That's all it's doing. It's just the fastest way to close these text boxes. And then, as we're seeing on DD's screen right now, as long as you're off the screen when the fight starts, the game thinks that the fight's over, because for the game's logic is if the boss isn't on the screen, then that means you beat the boss. So that's what happened. This is how we skip Yakra and a few other bosses later on. But yeah, you need the save anywhere glitch to be able to do that in the first place. Otherwise, you couldn't skip the actual trigger for the boss fight.
And Halation is the first one who's going to get up to actually get Marley back. And if you'd like to see the runner's progress throughout, use the ! splits in chat, and you'll be able to see a link to the splits as they go through. But we have rescued the princess, classic RPG stuff. That means we win the game, right? We saved the princess.
Yeah, right? This is a short game, so we'll be done pretty soon. No, I wish. Oh my god.
I mean, that's 2 Marios saving the princess in SMB 1. Well, 3 maybe. Depending.
Maybe, but that's not this run. We're having more fun than that.
Oh yeah, we got lots of fun ahead. So you talked already about the save anywhere, and it comes up in this screen particularly because this fight is different at the end of this bridge, depending on which direction you're coming from. So this is called reverse bird skip, and they're using the same concept as what happened on the Yakra fight to skip right on past that and not have to fight it.
And then the extension of that skip, as you saw Red and Halation do, if you drag the character models, actually, looking at rigs here, we'll get a good look at it again. If you drag the character models across the northern edge of the bridge, you can actually sneak by this bird fight that, yep, there you go. You basically, it's like the same movement to dodge the encounter as the normal bird skip, but you're just doing it from the opposite end, so you have to do a different setup to get it.
Now we've seen the runners start the process of the unequipped glitch, and basically the unequipped glitch is all about magic. We're increasing magic power and vastly improving our magic defense, and that will be very noteworthy when we're in some of these boss fights.
Yeah, without the unequipped glitch, there would be so much more grinding in this run. We wouldn't be able to handle pretty much anything after Magus Castle, and I would be curious as to how we would be able to handle Magus fight. I think that would probably be pretty tough as well without it, because it just, you said it reduces the damage you take from magical spells, except for fire, notably. By like 75% or some crazy number like that. So it basically completely nerfs magic attacks for the entire game, and it's So it's so simple to do, and it does so much for the run.
All right, well, as responsible, civic-minded individuals, we return the princess home. And obviously there's no way we can be blamed for anything, right?
No, of course not. This is the era that's all peaceful and stuff. They don't have jail and prisons. It's a utopia, right?
Well, we're about to find out that there is, in fact, a dungeon. The trial sequence, of course. Now, this is set up by the actions that you take at the Millennial Fair. There's positive actions you can take, there's negative actions you can take to influence the outcome here. We did very, very little to influence the outcome here. In fact, really the only thing is picking up the pendant. And when you pick up the pendant before Marley, you make it more like that's a negative action because you're trying to get her wealth. So we're going to have 2 questions to answer, and we're basically going to answer both of them in the negative because we're trying to get a guilty verdict. And then it comes down to frame RNG on the closing of windows as to which verdict we get. To save 2 text boxes.
So obviously this is the most important thing in the run, so pay close attention. But no, this is like a 7-second difference if you get guilty versus non-guilty, if I remember correctly, or something small like that.
It's 2 text boxes is how I describe it.
Yeah.
I've heard different numbers, but they don't feel quite right to me, so I just describe it as 2 text boxes. Question, chat, are they forced to safety save in this run? Well, they actually want to, in many cases, because it's part of the skips they're going to do.
Yeah, a lot of the save anywhere glitch just enforces you to save for any of those skips you do. So there's just inherent safety saves like baked into the run. And then a lot of the time, if you want to reset your RNG, if you're off of it, saving and resetting is how you do that as well. So there's even more reason to have it. So this is a run that, if you're doing it trying to hit world record times and stuff, yeah, there's obviously gonna be resetting. But like in a setting like this, it's pretty hard to just straight up not be able to finish.
Now, one of our runners commented in chat elation that he got a not guilty. He knows that because our RNG juror is the second one. So Red Slash already got the guilty. We know before his is over, and we know Halation already got the not guilty because that's what the second one did. Yeah, other than that, they'll vote the way that they will vote under this setup. You could change them by doing other things like eating the old man's lunch. But the reason we don't do that is because then the old man would come in as a witness, and that would be more text boxes, and when our whole point is to save text boxes, it just
exactly. Not to mention you have to go over to that other screen and actually steal his lunch, which is a time loss. Like,
well, it wouldn't necessarily be because you could go do Gatto bot at that point.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But now we're rerouting, and no one wants to do that.
Well, sure, that would take effort. Right, so once you're found guilty, you come in here. The Chancellor says you've been sentenced to death regardless of what the trial said. And you get a different response from the warden supervisor here based on what happened. He'll say, oh, wait, I didn't hear anything about that, versus, so this is the traitor.
Yeah, the Chancellor's kind of a jerk, unfortunately. But we won't get to get our revenge right away, but we'll get our good revenge soon enough.
All right, so the jailbreak begins. Of course, there is that full heal there. The pink bundle there, you can get, I believe it's an ether, but you don't want to pick that up before the guards anyways because they give you an extra text box, and again, we're trying to avoid that.
Xboxes are bad. So, to further talk about the RNG, one of the ways that we as runners know if we have the RNG or not is certain battles will have we know almost every damage value for every fight, and this first Cyclone on the first guard is one of those values. We want to see 60 there. If we don't see 60, we know we're off the RNG. The RNG is extremely important because the Dragon Tank fight is very tight, and if there's even a small deviation from it, you're going to die. The fight ends with like less than 40 total HP between your two characters, so there's just no wiggle room for error. And it's super important that you know that you're on the RNG beforehand so you're not wasting a bunch of time. So we see the 60, we know we're good, we move forward.
Then you want to knock out these guards so that you're not fighting them, and when you do, it happens to drop mid tonics if you're so inclined to examine and take their stuff.
It's free.
And also pretty important to get that skip between the masks. It's not that hard to set up, but it takes a little bit of practice.
It was actually one of the few skips I knew about casually. For some reason, the way the floor tiles line up, it just seems like a lane. So I just tried it out one time and it worked. I was like, oh, sweet.
Long before I even knew about speedrunning, I started getting into it with the idea of Magus's Castle, and I'm like, I wonder how many of these I could skip. And I found out about a lot of them from that. It was a challenge.
Now we've got Red and Halation up onto the Dragon Tank fight. This is, like I said, it's a very tight, intricate fight. There's not a lot of room for error. It's super important to be on RNG because Chrono's crits on the head are crucial in killing it fast enough so that you're not being outputted damage-wise versus the healing.
And the head has 600 HP here, so that's how much damage we have to do. It's getting the 70s on the heal. But yeah, it's going to take a few rounds to be able to deal that much damage.
And then once the head is destroyed, it's just a matter of making sure your inputs are correct to finish off. It's super important to take care of the wheel next because that rolling attack that it does is super powerful and can easily wipe the party at the levels of health that you are at this point in the fight. So Luca with the flame toss. Now that's one thing that you might not realize casually. Is that only the head is immune to the fire and lightning damage. The body is fine. You can use it there. And there's that pesky fire whirl.
So, two of our runners getting through this fight clean so far.
The almost synced up Dragon Tank kill. That's beautiful. Oh no, Keat got caught by the shield folk.
That's unfortunate. It is unrunnable, so the gimmick of this fight is you wait for the shield to open up, and then that thing has no HP, basically. It's got like 10.
Yeah, it's got... Yeah, exactly. It's
bigger
it's
concern
just the shield.
The RNG.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he's going to do the backup or just reload. Meanwhile, everybody else that's in the fight seems to be having no trouble whatsoever. This fight's not particularly difficult. Once you know the strategy, it's pretty straightforward. Everybody has their hiccups and whatnot, but for the most part, this fight is pretty standard for the run. You'll have a lot of fights like this coming forward, so this is a good warm-up.
Now there's another skip that Fox is about to show off, so I want to highlight this in the bottom left. He moves over to that guard, and we skip one instance of them shouting and chasing us. And that one is probably one of the best feeling skips, as weird as that is to say. But it's just like, come on, let me move.
It is
But,
very satisfying, but I'm horribly biased and think Candy Skip's the best one because, as an NG Plus runner, I'm just, I'm
That's fair.
biased.
So, as for the overall run, overall game, Marley says, hey, there's a portal here, let's just take it, who cares where it goes? Nothing could possibly go wrong when we do that. And I believe this is Chancellor Shocked on FFC, if you have that.
One of the best sprites ever made, without question.
Gotta love it when games have a good sense of humor.
Like, literally, you have to.
Alright, so Keith is working through this dragon tank fight as our other runners are into the lab, and again, you're going to want to do some various things to skip encounters, but one of them is this running into a rat and getting a stolatonic. Why are they doing that?
So, for whatever reason, the game, when text boxes are up, if you can hold them and transition them through naturally by walking away, that's one of Chrono Trigger's features. Text boxes can be closed just by walking far enough from wherever the text box was originated. They'll just auto-close it. So you get the rat, and then you open up the chest with the bow. That has two different text boxes that are active. And then you run through the encounter triggers. The game has too much stuff going on. So by the time you close both those text boxes, you're past the encounter triggers, so the game's like, well, whatever, you got through the encounter, I don't care. It's a very friendly game.
A big GG to Keith Ketchum there for the backup strats kill.
Yeah, that's a very good backup to know, because you lose a buttload of time having to reload that, because you got to start at the beginning of the prison sequence. So that's a reset for any top runner, for sure. So having that backup knowledge is good.
Here with the rats, if you don't have a tonic for them to steal, they'll steal 500 gold, but gold is not a huge concern for us because, well, we're never buying armor.
Or weapons. It's actually incredible. It's one of the few runs in any RPG I've seen that really has very little, like, shopping. There's a few shops that we do in the run, and they take care of everything we need.
Yeah, and we can avoid any sort of menu time. Again, it's just pure time saved that you're picking up over the run. And we didn't even bother mentioning Guardian, because Guardian doesn't exist, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this was what I was alluding to before at the beginning of the run when some of the runners were changing their control schemes around. The room that the Guardian boss fight takes place in, if you enter the menu in that room, it will trigger a fight. Obviously, we don't want those. So to do the fade out skip, you need to go into the menu. Thankfully, the game only cares about you pressing the specific button that is normally configured to the menu, which is X. So if you switch it, then the game won't care that you're in the menu, and you can do the menu and all that good stuff. And then you do the skip as, DD is doing now, and
then you have to catch the rat, the true final boss of this.
Yes. If you get the god rat, that's amazing. But that's very hard to do.
I don't care how many times I have done this game, I hate catching that rat.
There is a nice little bit of anxiety to catching him, because, like, even though, like you said, you do it hundreds and hundreds of times, but, like, you'll have that one time where you're, like, catch an edge wrong, and then you're like, oh, man, I might not catch up to the rat this time.
Now, if for whatever reason you missed it, you just start over from the other side, but...
yeah.
That's...
I don't know, I like...
I want that in speedruns.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Plus, I feel like the catching it from south to north is actually a little bit more difficult to do the movement properly. Due to, like, how you move faster going diagonally and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but it just feels better to do it from north to south rather than south to north.
I think that's preference, because I've always thought south was easier.
Okay.
Well, let me put it this way. I think first third is easier from the south, because that's
Sure.
south. I'll catch it there.
Now we're seeing on Rig's screen him using the fade out skip to skip the first half of the cutscene where we find out that Lavos is a jerk. And Marl likes to push buttons randomly for no reason.
I mean, if we didn't already have a DD, she could be our DD.
It's a fair point. That is a fair point.
What does this button do? Hey, let's throw some thank yous out there. First of all, our runners given us an outstanding show so far. There's links to their Twitch channels in chat. Please feel free to give all of them a follow. And don't forget dying while you're doing that, because these things don't happen without restreamers, strangely enough. They're pretty important to the process.
Yeah, it's awesome to have so many great people in this community. So supporting all of them is absolutely a great idea, because you'll be happier having these great people in your life.
Now we reached the race section, and the first thing you may notice our runners do is they go to the screen instead of examining the bike, and that's specific because it's faster. And then we get the man, the myth, the Johnny.
And also we get the best minigame ever.
No, there's different ways you can do this. The fastest is going to be if you're doing like Red Slash and sticking out in front of Johnny and having him bump you. To win this, all you have to do is be clear of Johnny when there's less than 50 to go on that top number, and then you hit the boost, and you will win. And it is that easy. Now, that's not optimal, but just when you're playing, that's how easy it is to win. Just be clear and boost.
Yep. There is pretty much no real strategy needed to do that to do the safe part. You can literally walk away and just come back when the race is about to be over and do it. Because you could just have Johnny bumping you in front the whole time. But like you said, it's slower. Because it actually does matter. The numerical value that has your points actually is related to your speed as well. Because the more bumps you get from Johnny, the faster you're going. So it does accumulate and add up time-wise. But it's not like, multiple minutes or anything like that.
Yeah, Riggs is doing basically the easiest strategy, which is just loop around. Don't take the reverse bounces. That's very easy to do. And then, depending on how comfortable you can feel, you could take a bump or two when you're down under 100. Just as long as you got to be sure you're under 50. So don't even do it on a 5. Do it on a 4, and then hit the boost, and you're all set.
Meanwhile, we've got some repairs going on with some very civilized robots.
Very polite, in fact.
Well, while Rick Astley is revived from slumber, we had a question in chat about taking a fight. Yeah, we actually do need to take that fight entering the dome. Unfortunately, there's no way around that one. But it's a good way to know if you're on RNG, because where Marl attacks with the Berserker will tell you where you are RNG wise. So it's a good way to know if you need to do any setup for the lead up to the factory.
As for the little robots that are standing in front of the Entron, we avoid them by this really complicated technique called not running.
Right. Don't hold the run button. It's crazy. Slowing down the speedrun, that should be illegal.
There is a zone that's basically from the staircase to the end of the other staircase, and if you're running in there, you will trigger the fight. But if you're walking through there, it will not trigger the fight. And the game has a lot of those interesting little conditional triggers, and the more you know of them, the more fights you can avoid. Then it does a very good job storyline-wise of giving us a reason why we can only have 3 characters up here. Someone has to stay behind to open up the door. You know, that's logical. And then we come up to the tree.
So we start with one of the more annoying enemies in the game, these Alkaline and Acids. They have extremely high defenses and are just very frustratingly difficult to beat. Their damage value rolls are like, I swear they're like locked sometimes on 1, regardless of what you do. I've seen so many times where I get a crit and it's like 2. Like, oh, thanks. Thank you.
Just a difference in routes. If you were on glitchless, you'd actually have the Berserker equipped there, and basically you're just hoping for the damage rolls from that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Red Slash just went through. I want to highlight this real fast. There's, I believe, 3 fights there that we're avoiding. The easy way is just to run at the top, and we'll see that as other runners get there. You can do like a pixel perfect run through the middle, but I wouldn't blame anyone for taking the easy path on the high side because it's like 2 extra steps.
Red getting a much more favorable slime, 5 slime fight here. This is all random. It's one of the only random things in the game. We've found ways to manipulate it, but it involves the game counter and waiting until you enter this area. And I think it's like at the top of the minute, so it has to be like double zeros is what you're looking for, but it's not usually worth waiting to get a better drop. You really want to avoid what Halation saw, which was like 3 and 2 of the slimes and having them all like spread out in between each other. So because this fight, you really want to do as many cyclones as you can get off. It's the best damage output that you can get. Since it hits multiple enemies and stuff. Like, Robo does pretty hefty hits, but sometimes he'll still get a low roll and only do like 1 or 2.
The greens are much easier to hit, but it's the mix and the counterattack that is...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you have a green and a red next to each other and you don't kill what you're attacking, that's going to be an AoE counter that deals pretty hefty damage and is pretty slow animation as well. So it's really ideal to avoid them at all costs. I mean, if we could script it, it'd be 5 greens, of course. But as one
actually, yeah, not to contradict you too much, but I believe that was tried before, but you end up being off on the experience route.
It's too low. Interesting. Okay. Well, either way, you would want 5. You would want 5.
I'm gonna find out because that's what DD's got. So if I'm right in my memory, because that's just something I remember from Defeat Magus years ago, we'll see if he's got to deal with that.
It's interesting. I never thought about that. I didn't realize that the EXP and TP outputs were that varied. I figured it was like maybe one more tech point and maybe like 10 more EXP per. Yeah, it looks like DD saying that he actually got the manip there. DD was one of the ones who was first starting to implement that manip when it was figured out. So it's not surprising that he did such a good job getting it.
Well, and if it's intentional, then assumedly he has this route figured out, but that's going to make that fight way faster.
And we've got Red and Halation making their way to the Blue Boys fight. This is one of those fights where it can be really bad if you go off script, but if you stay on script, it's just like so easy. It's such a weird anxiety with this fight because like you should never really have an issue with it once you've learned the the strategy, but like, man, every time I'm just like, oh, get that cyclone quick! Oh, get in there!
Well, we talked earlier about the unequipped helping the magic defense and reducing the magic, but you may dawn on people now that your armor actually isn't there, so your defense isn't quite as good. And these are physical attacking enemies, so if they start punching you, it gonna hurt.
Yeah, what we're really trying to avoid is the back row has a specific attack where they basically punch you, one of the characters, back and forth between it and another one of the robots for like 4 times, and then throws you into the other player character. This animation takes like probably forever. And then on top of that is their highest damage dealing attack, besides when they go into solo rage mode. And that's the other thing we're trying to avoid, is leaving one left, because one left becomes way more powerful and they can really wipe you out if you're not careful. But this fight's pretty simple. We're just cycloning the first row once, then cycloning the back row twice, and then cycloning the first row again. It'll get off 6 attacks ideally, and as long as no one's getting bullied, you don't really have to heal. And that's it. There you go.
All right, and one of the big things is there's nothing you can do to help this along where Fox is. You just have to wait on this scene to play out. You can go up and talk to them, but again, more text boxes. We're trying not to do that, but you cannot do anything but wait this whole sequence out before the fight starts. And then you bring a broken robot back to Luca.
So, with that fight ended, we drag Robo's freshly fixed and now completely destroyed body back to run it back. Poor Luca's got to reset the run. And then we'll get to find out about time travel from an expert.
The expert, in fact. At least at the Chrono universe.
Yeah, I would agree.
And again, the game is going to actually give us a storyline reason why the party is limited. You got to appreciate that attention to detail. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like right here when you're walking, it looks like you got a 4-person party.
Yeah, they really do a good job of tricking you. Like, oh my god, we're gonna have so many people. I'm gonna get to do quad techs.
But then, fun fact, you get to the end of time, you can menu and see that you actually only do have 3 people in your party.
Well, that's spoiling yourself. Why would you do that?
I don't know. Lulz.
But it looks like Fox and Riggs have no issues with the Blue Boys. So everybody makes it out of the factory okay. We just got Keat left here to wrap up.
Real quick, just because I kind of like to try and highlight where we're doing encounter skips, because if no one tells you, you wouldn't know, because we skipped them. There's 2 in this hallway where the robots are when we're coming from the other direction, and those are easily avoided just by running at the top. And then down the hallway, there was another one before the slime room, and that one was easily avoided just by running at the bottom of the screen. This stuff is all laid out in the speedrun documentation, but just for the sake of completeness, I like to note where they are for people just casually watching.
Sure, of course. Another thing, the practice ROM has a feature that will show you all the encounter tiles on screen, so you can see where they are as you're playing it and help give you the idea of where to avoid them. Seeing like the spots to avoid is more important than knowing the route, really, because you can memorize movement, but knowing exactly where to not go is even better.
Chad, I hope everybody is doing a good enough job thinking magic, because our runners need it. We we reach Spekio for the first time. This is his first form. The frog form is what you'll see if you get here at level 9 or lower.
Yeah, you're never gonna see this in a casual playthrough. It's basically impossible with the boss fights. They give you enough experience that if you aren't skipping, there's pretty much no way that you can get that low.
I am also curious, chat, what kind of cake? Because the cake is not a lie. Our runners eat it to get a full HP MP restore. But what kind of cake? Please let us know in chat. This cave is our path back to Chrono's hometown, the Millennial Fair. It is themed to make you learn to use magic on enemies. You just freshly got these skills from Spekio, and now they want you to use them. So these enemies are very resistant to physical attacks and very weak to magic attacks.
Another technical note here, what you see Red doing when he's running away from some of these encounters, he's actually going into his menu. This is actually done on purpose. We do this to make the skip or make the runaway happen faster, and it also holds RNG values so that enemies don't get attacks off and move the RNG forward and off script. So these are actually important things that the runners need to be doing. Otherwise, they could have the script go off because an enemy got an attack off before they ran away.
And that's true regardless of manipulation, because it would keep the enemies from taking their turns. So you vastly reduce the attacks you take. We got Hekron is up next with his 2100 HP, and hope everyone is ready for a real thrilling encounter here. At least whenever we get to one, because it's not going to be Hekron. We're just going to skip it.
Why battle bosses when you can just trick the game into thinking you already did? Silly game. But yeah, this is basically cut and dry the same kind of skip that we did against Yakra, where we're getting save anywhere, carrying it into the next room, and then loading the game from a point where the encounter will be considered activated when we come back from the game load. And then all we got to do from there is just boop Hekron on the belly, and that will start the fight, and then we run off screen, and the game's like, oh, fight's over, good job.
And there we have it. We're back on the main world. Well, main world. Our hometown area. Let's call it that. Drunken Draconian just ran past one encounter. It's two enemies of these Temporites, however you want to pronounce that, and they're easily avoided just by running around the top. Other than that, there's one other skip we do in this cave, which is the bats that are right towards the end. And that's just by making sure you go down properly instead of straight across, like Drunken Draconian just did right there.
Yep. Yeah, that one's very smooth. You just kind of have to stay against the edge of the ladder as you're going up so that you can keep that edge going from right to left. Ooh, nice. So it looks like Red did...
Or it may not be obvious because of the screen size, but when you're playing yourself, you can easily see this crack on the floor, which is a great visual cue of where you are. You just got to get to the left side.
What we saw on Red's screen was the implementation of the Save Anywhere glitch done in the End of Time. This is a little bit more complicated than our typical Save Anywhere glitches, because it involves using text boxes to be able to access the ability to switch the characters, and then while doing that, there's a lot of complicated parts that I'm not going to explain, but it does that in a way that it still tricks the game into thinking that you are on the save point while you're taking the gate to in this case, 600. But all this stuff that we see Halation doing right now is basically making it so that once the party gates away, they'll have save anywhere intact. It looks like Halation's having a little trouble getting the right timing on the text box closing.
One of the things a speedrun will teach you is exactly how much you have to do to be able to do the next storyline thing. So to be able to get to Zombor at all, we have to walk to the bridge, talk to the captain to initialize the whole thing. Then we have to walk down into the kitchen, talk to the chef. You have to let him finish his rant all the way to the pipe down box and let that close before you leave the screen. Or else that will still not be enough. And then finally, when you're exiting the castle, you can get the jerky and advance to the bridge.
Wow, Red just made one of the most difficult skips in this run look like cake. We use the save anywhere here to skip the first encounter by getting past the text block that prevents us from advancing further down the bridge. We load the game past that block. Game thinks we're past it, so it's good. And then we walk to the next encounter section and do the exact same thing. You load right when you're pretty much neck and neck with that soldier, and then again reload the save, and you'll skip all the encounters, including Zombor fight, and it's the bane of every CT runner's existence, I promise you.
So Halation, doing some backup strats because the end of time wasn't working out, gets the save anywhere picked up from the cathedral now, because that was the most handy save point.
Yeah, it's not an ideal backup, but it's a good enough backup. You obviously lose a lot of time having to go over there, but
as to the actual bridge, we skip 2 fights where all you have to do is attack Ozzy 3 times to win, but hey, speedrun. It's faster to not have the fight. And then, of course, the Zombor boss. And we just move on. Up here in the mountains, there's a lot of just make sure you're to this side or the other side on the screen, and that will avoid the encounter. That's one of the most important skips on the mountain, because you will get 3 in a row if you don't get the skip properly.
yeah, that's a really long sequence of fights. It's so funny how little you have to do to avoid it. Like, literally just walking a few paces up, and then you just can run directly left and avoid all of it.
Now what we're coming up to is one of the more challenging bosses of this run, in my opinion. Just because when you realize what resources we have, what we're working with, and what the enemy actually does. But first, hey, there's a couple kids running around here.
Oh yeah. No, this is definitely one of the first fights in the game that really tests the runner's ability to properly do menuing and script without having pauses or delays, because what we'll see as the second half of this fight, not the Masamune combined part of it, or the Masamune combined part of the fight. What we'll see from that is a lot of inputs being done while attacks are happening on screen. And this is super important because you need to do these inputs at the right times, otherwise the RNG values will change, the script will change, and you'll get deviation from what you think is supposed to happen. And like you had just said, this is a very strong boss fight. You're probably going to die if you go off script.
And also, I think worth noting out that we've skipped 2 bosses since our last one. So just realize in the intended progression of the game, we've we're significantly behind what was intended because we haven't had those 2 boss fights, so we didn't have to be any stronger.
Yeah, and we've skipped like 4 total bosses so far. So you skip Yakra, Guardian, Hecarim, and Zombor. So that's just oodles and oodles of experience and tech points that we haven't picked up. And then, compound that with all the encounters we're skipping that the devs wouldn't expect the player to be able to avoid. There are some encounters that the developers certainly gave a casual player the opportunity to avoid, but there are definitely some of these skips that we're doing, you're not going to stumble upon this in a casual playthrough unless you're really, really looking.
Now, a little mechanics note about the game of Chrono Trigger. The way that you learn a dual tech is to have the 2 requirement single techs and then complete a fight with those 2 characters in the party. You don't have to learn a new tech in the fight, you just have to finish a fight, and I think even if it was 0 tech points, but certainly if it was 1 tech point, you will learn the dual tech at the completion of that fight. It just can't be a runaway. So we learned Fire Punch from the separate Masa and Mune fight, because that was the first time that we completed the battle where we had the requisite techs.
You're correct. You just have to complete the fight because even if you lose against Spekio, you'll still get the tech bonuses from that fight.
Okay, well, he's kind of a weird exception to the losing rule, anyways.
True, but basically that's my easy example to know that you're not wrong.
But fair enough.
And now we see various points of the Denadoro Mountain sequence being played out by all the different runners right now. We've got Red in the Masamune fight, just wrapping it up as I'm bringing attention to it. He's like, "You're too slow, Harder. Could you pick up the pace?"
Look at that great reserve of 9 HP left.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how tight this script is for the second half of the fight. It makes the Dragon Tank script look even tight, even like a casual playthrough, considering, because you're 2 attacks from being dead on that script. If that script continues and you don't kill Masamune at that point, like, you're wiped in 2 more turns of attacks that it has. So, like, it's crazy how difficult that fight can be, and Red made it look like just so simple. But that's Red. Red's above and beyond.
And relative to where we are in the game, like, even if you were on level, that's a very physically strong boss. So again, we're good on our magic defense, not our physical defense. So there's not a lot of tolerance that you can work with there.
Yep. And since we have Chrono berserked for this fight, we don't even have access to using his slash attack to destroy the tornado vortex attack that Masamune has in the second phase. So, you're on a timer on that too, because if he starts sucking in the wind, there's nothing you can do to stop it, and that's gonna be a very painful attack for you to take.
Yeah, also storyline-wise, we went there because we were supposed to be looking for the legendary hero, which is supposed to be Kana here, who we find out wasn't actually the legendary hero, and we get the hero medal in rewards for our efforts. Also a broken half of a sword. Half of a sword or third of a sword?
Half of a sword. Yeah,
Okay.
because it's the way I think of it from because actually Toriyama did artwork for the broken pieces, so you actually get to see it, and it's basically like most of the blade, and then the hilt with like a little bit of the blade attached to the hilt still.
This is Glenn's home here in 600. He's been hanging out in a forest. If you talk to NPCs, they would tell you something about seeing monster frogs in the forest. That's your hint, as it were, to come here. He has a lot of built-in hints that you won't notice because you probably don't spend a lot of time talking to NPCs. Like, they'll actually tell you the slash thing.
I'm mostly concerned about his candle burning in that, like, underground cavern where there's no, ventilation. But, I don't know, maybe as a frog he breathes differently.
There's totally ventilation. It's indicate otherwise.
That's fair.
And Halation's going to get through the Mosmian fight, second of our runners.
And Riggs.
Yeah, Riggs right there.
Yeah, Riggs catching back up to the lead, even though he's on the other side of it. Like we said at the beginning, the NoLSS and the LSS are still going to be pretty similar at this point strat-wise, so there's not really any reason why the runners won't be neck and neck for at least another 30 minutes, 40 minutes or so.
As far as storyline goes, our quest right now is to repair the Masamune because we needed to defeat Magus, because we think Magus is the one who accidentally destroys the world by summoning Lavos. Or creating Lavos, actually, is the story theory at the moment. Well, when you recover the hilt of the Masamune, it has Melchior's name. So, it seems like a good idea to go talk to Melchior about it.
And Melchior's like, I am way too tired to fix this, so I'm going to take a nap, and if you guys can get all the crap I need, then, we can do this.
I mean, he doesn't have the ability to travel through time and space like we do.
I mean, yeah. But he's got the ability to be magical and make magic swords and embody emotions and feelings into swords, which is pretty sweet power.
Well, as long as he has the requisite materials, and that's what we gotta do. We gotta uphold our part of the deal.
It's still a fetch quest, let's be real.
Sure.
But happy to do it, because it brings us to the true love of the Chrono Trigger community. Which is, of course, Ayla.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the first instance of hearing Quarters of Time.
That's up there, sure.
So then,
now,
you have these reptites down here that we have to fight, and it's nice when they're grouped up for us.
Yep, and that's part of the script. This is actually another one of those points where if you're off script, because these two encounters should go really smoothly in terms of the placement of these reptites. They're going to be grouped together in ways that you can use Slash and Flame Toss and Antipode. Because if you do this casually and just play this, those guys spread out all over the screen, and it's really hard to get them all in a AoE. But with the script the way it is, you have them all lined up perfectly. And the way that we actually control that is via like the text box smashing right before this encounter happens. If you close the text boxes at the right moment, it'll have that set up guaranteed. And as we see Red take care of it, super simple, because you just can slash or slash flame toss, whatever. Either one.
It matters which party you bring here, because if Robo is here, then you're going to hear her talk about the raw boot.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite lines, but yeah, it is extra dialogue, which we don't want. You can go either or, Doc, to answer your question in chat. I don't think that there's really any definitive terminology on these, since there isn't any live or voice-acted stuff involved with the series, unfortunately.
Look, when they give it to us as an anime movie, I'll adopt whatever convention they say there, otherwise I'm gonna call it a walk-to.
I think Chrono Trigger would have to be a mini-series, because it's kind of too much going on to fit it into a movie.
How about a trilogy?
I would be okay with a Lord of the Rings style trilogy of the Chrono Trigger story. Just saying. Just throwing that out there into the ether. Maybe some talented director might be like, hey, that's a good idea.
Alright, so, clearly, it's party time! We're an hour into this game. What a great time for a party. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that it switched back to Robo here. And the actions of this character who's on the left tell you what cycle you are in this feast. And he's going to come to a point where he's standing still and eyes blinking like that, and that tells you you can come talk to Ayla and do the soup battle. Marley will do a different set of actions that involve her dancing, and I believe that is in fact slower.
Yeah, it's not. You actually have to dance with her, which is like fine if you're, dating her. But since none of us are, we just want to, continue with the run. So, we just leave Marl out of the party for this part.
And you could have a Luca in the third spot, and she'd do something different there. But again, I think it's actually slower than what Robo will do. So
yeah, I believe that she offers you up some of the drink to try out before the drink race if she's in the third slot, but it's been a while since I've had her in slot 3, so I don't really remember if that's specifically what happens, but it's definitely slower than Robo, who does literally no text. He doesn't care. He's a party robot, so he's just partying down.
So those are our fundamental reasons why it actually matters who you do there. So I feel like pointing that out because it gives us something to talk about.
Yeah, there's not a lot. This is kind of a slower section of the run between all the talking that you do after you get the sword and then, getting introduced to 65 million. But it's a nice mental break in the run because after this sequence, we've got some really intense stuff going on between Magus Castle and Tyranno Lair being like two back-to-back very intense dungeons that have very heavy RNG implications and require you to be on script the entire time, otherwise you will definitely die, and that's a bad time. And that's a good chunk of time too, of the run. So it's nice to have this little like kind of silly mental break, where you don't really have to pay too much attention. Like if you lose RNG here, you can back it up before you go into the lair, the forest lair, or the whatever lair that thing is called that Red's about to enter, and it will tell me that lair. There we go.
So notably, the first thing he did was use the fade out skip to skip talking to Kino, because we don't really need to talk to him.
We call him Keynope for a reason. Or at least I do.
Sure, why not?
We got another RNG value. That 34 damage on Chrono. That's how we know we're on script for the Reptite Lair. And while the lair itself is not particularly dangerous, the encounters won't really get you, and the Nizbal boss fight's actually impossible to die on, because he does so little damage with the unequipped glitch, keeping us completely safe from his lightning counter. And with Ayla with the Berserker, she just like mows through him, and it's beautiful to watch. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the run is this sequence, because you just let Ayla just thump because she's such a higher level than the rest of the party at this point.
The other thing's probably noteworthy is that you can in fact lose the soup contest to Ayla, and then you just have to do it over again, but it's not really that hard as long as you've done some practice of mashing a button for video game purposes.
Yeah, I forget the number of button presses you have to like win the race, but it's not really a super difficult number. Chrono Trigger is a entry-level RPG by design, so they're never gonna put you in a scenario as a player where you're gonna have like to struggle to get through a story point sequence, which is one of the nice things about it. Very beginner-friendly game.
You can do some of the Tent of Horrors stuff if you want a more challenging.
That's what Final Fantasy's for.
Let me just mention this on Keith Ketchum's side. Now, he ran past those 4 dinos the first time, and then he gets them running in there. The reason you do that is because you're going to get that fight with the 2 koalas running back and forth. You can't avoid that one. So you may as well group them together and just run from one battle instead of two. And that's the reason we do that sequence that way.
Yep, just a wee bit to time save. So we've got Red currently in the Nizbal fight, and this fight is very simple. You know, all you're doing is just lightning with Chrono and then just letting Ayla do crazy damage. If you're on script, she's basically critting every hit for the most part, and as we'll see here, the electrocution counter is laughable. You know, you can get like 4 off before anybody's in actual danger. But if you're on script, this is a 1-phase fight. He does not get a second counter off.
So
that's probably the only awkward part, is like if you are off script, it'll be a two phase, but you know, it's a little time loss, but that's it.
Little contrast for the boss fights and the relative danger. The R series were hitting us for 1/3 of damage, and that electric release from Nizbal was something like 1/8 of damage.
Yeah.
So, light contrast between those two. And GG. Red Slash takes down Nizbal. The Forest Maze, there's several fights that we're skipping because, of course, we can. And they're not hard skips, you just have to know where the encounter triggers are, like most of them, but it's usually no more complicated than walking like 1 step to the side.
Yeah, the avoidance in this dungeon is pretty easy to do. Anybody that has a little bit of experience with the game is going to probably know this route pretty well anyways, just because you're not really deviating too far off of the actual path. I mean, you see them following those footprints pretty much exclusively. There's only like a couple of spots, like this spot coming up. I didn't really realize you could skip that casually. And then there's this next spot as well, right before the exit. That those two, that Trinitron, that Fox just went by, reading the screen wrong. Those two are the only real, like, I don't want to say dangerous, but the only two ones that like are really hard to avoid, in terms of the encounters and in the maze.
But as you're learning the game, that's one of the more satisfying sections, in my opinion, because it's sort of the intermediate stage of encounter avoidance, where when you're doing this clean, you've made a lot of progress in how you're moving through the game.
Absolutely.
But with that, Red Slash has picked up the red rock, and we are on our way back to Melkir.
Ooh, and we've almost got synced up between Riggs and Halation. Very close with the boss fights. And then everybody else is meandering through at different points. We see DD doing some of that walking instead of running that you were talking about earlier when we were in the dome, to avoid that encounter. Because that encounter's partially, it can be triggered if the monkey sees you, or the ape, or whatever it is. Obviously, if you run into the mushrooms as well, but that's how that trigger goes. So if you walk slowly behind him and then just jump past him when he turns around, very Metal Gear Solid-esque kind of sneaky gameplay that I appreciate.
Yeah, when you first enter that room, you have to be a little particular about going up right away. You don't have a buffer to wait. But then with the second one, you actually do have to wait a little bit anyways. But he needs to be you need to be walking behind his back, basically, to skip the second fight. He's got to be looking down while you're going up.
Yep, one of the very few field of vision encounter triggers that you find this early on in the game. You get more of them later on, but like you get a lot of them in Black Omen, for example. But in terms of the run, there's not that many that you come across.
And the game loves to do that. It loves to introduce a concept to you and then use it more later without necessarily warning you, but give you a little bit of warning, introduce the thought process to you that, hey, you may be able to do something this way, and then really make use of it later on.
I've always argued that Chrono Trigger is the best RPG tutorial ever made. Because it's just,
I don't even think you needed to add the word tutorial.
Well,
I mean,
that too, but that's, you know, you'll have your naysayers out there. But I just mean from a standpoint of, like, if you're a person who, like, kind of seems turned off to RPGs in general, you know, you think they're too long, they're overly complicated, you don't want to spend a lot of time grinding, you don't like random encounters, you don't like aimlessly wandering around trying to figure out what to do next, like, all that stuff is not in this game, and it's just so streamlined, so focused. But, you know, most of you guys already know that if you're here, so. But if you haven't played this game casually before...
Lack of news. Like, we have not seen a new yet on this 1 in 4 chance.
Yeah, it's actually, like, I think illegal to have this many runners and not see a new at this point. So we might have to, you know, restart the entire race.
Okay, apologies. There are multiple screens. Salation informs us that, in fact, there was one new.
Oh, okay. Good.
All right.
I didn't want to have to make everybody reset. That'd be awkward.
Yeah, I mean, hour in, make everybody start over would have been bad.
Yeah, but, you know, those are the rules, so I'm just the commentator. I don't make the rules. I just adhere to them.
Storyline-wise, we get a little bit of a flashback into Glenn's history. As you may have noticed, I insist on calling him his proper name. But his history and the history of Cyrus and the history of the Masamune, basically, as they attempted to fight back against Magus. That's going on while other runners are working through various stages of preparing the Masamune or keep catching finishing up Mizbul here.
One thing we didn't cover earlier, when Red was getting the sword repaired, is that we do a couple of fade skips here to avoid part of the conversation with Melchior, and then all this movement that Riggs is doing right now is actually important because we want to let Melchior's sprite move freely without being hindered by any of the other sprites. And even though you can't impede his progress, you actually would slow him down if he has to pass through your sprite. So that's why we stay to the right and left. And another part of the fade out that they did at the top floor was so that Luca would not be part of Melchior's fixing everything part of the sequence, and that makes it go by a little bit faster as well, since there's less stuff going on screen. And you avoid her text as well.
If he had the chance, so they have to swap the characters to keep either one of them from triggering. Also wanted to throw in that Mizbul had 4,200 HP. I'd just like to throw that in when we're actually fighting a boss, so I'll get it in late, better than never.
Fair. Although that hardly seems like a fight. It's more of like just beating up on a poor, helpless Tyrannosaur. Or whatever Mizbul is.
His fault for skipping leg day.
Well, I mean, if he's like a T-Rex descendant, then he's probably just trying to make up for his small arms, right? And it got out of hand.
It's Tyrannosaurus. Not Tyrannosaurus. Triceratops. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got the 3 on his head. He's a Tyrannosaurus. I'm doing it wrong again. Whatever I'm trying to say.
The Jedi mind trick has worked perfectly.
I was not prepared to discuss dinosaurs, strangely enough.
Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for that random lore that you're never going to get anywhere else. Like, what species of dinosaur is Mizbul?
Are we actually on Red's audio? Because I can't tell.
I'm not sure. I don't have that icon.
Okay, as long as I know, because that's gonna matter. We've got a second round of cutscenes here as we find more of the origin story of Glenn. We've reached the mountain. We've reforged the Masamune.
And now we get more frog backstory. Even further backstory. Which is A nice break for the the runner to have these two sequences. Obviously, we can't leave and like go to the bathroom or anything, but it is nice to have just like this little delay of any sort of actual gameplay. So you just kind of relax, get a drink, maybe munch on something, and it's like right around the halfway point of the run. So it's nice.
All right, so well, one thing you could do is switch controller hand, just click through boxes. But wow, this is a very strong lack of news. Honestly,
Well, Halation's asking for Frog Skip, and Halation is the true any percent maestro he's been working on the there's all sorts of save corruption stuff. So if anyone's gonna figure it out, it's gonna be you, buddy. But yeah, no, Frog Skip is like one of the most sought after skips that will never happen, because I imagine the game would just like die if you could skip these cutscenes and just like head right to Magus's castle.
well, it's not his fault that we've got the cutscenes.
Well, I mean, it is kind of his fault, because if he didn't turn Glenn into a frog and kill Cyrus, then Glenn wouldn't have this like terribly emo backstory for us to listen to.
Okay, then it's all Magus's fault.
There we go. Now we got it. Now we're on the same page. I like it.
But are we on the same book?
Probably not.
Okay then. So let's just cut a mountain open, because why not?
I always say, if you want your mountains cut in half best, just go to Frog. He's got the goods.
All right, so the reason that, well, we're not there yet. So a lot of these scenes to get through, they take a while, and there's a very important skip in this magic cave or red slash, because it gets super obnoxious if you trigger this extra one that you can. But mostly you just hug the walls and run. Do not run into one of those bats, or it's going to be an unpleasant time. You'd get another fight down there with like 8 rats, and then there'd be one more encounter show up after that, and it is super obnoxious.
Yep, and those rats have like the slowest attack animation ever, and they all get their attack off, and you're just like falling asleep waiting for the fight to end, and you're just like, please stop. Yeah, it's pretty horrible.
So, Magus's Castle, where things do a good job of being creepy with the music setting the right tone, or being the right tone, because it's only one.
And then of course you have Flea like just flying around you the whole time, being super annoying.
Geez, spoilers, man. On a 30-year-old game. But spoilers!
Yeah. Yeah. What was I thinking?
As far as this first part of the castle, you have to go into the flea and slash rooms before you can advance. So we have to walk through all this, and just enter the room is enough, and then you can turn around and go back.
Yeah, y'all are asking for Frog Skip. I'm asking for Pane Glass Window Skip, where you can just skip this whole section and just go right through that first staircase and leave this whole section behind.
And then it's Ozzy! And in fact, this is the first time there's the flashbacks, but this is the first time we're directly talking to him.
Yep, thanks to the Zombor skip, we did not have to interact with him earlier.
So, as it has been told to me, there are in fact 100 monsters in this castle, although you could fight more than that if you wanted to, because some of them are repeatable. However, we'll be avoiding as many of them as we can. And we're up to a very critical moment here in the game, and we have Halation's audio, so we gotta let that good music play for just a little bit. All right, I love that. That's my favorite bit of music in the game. So, thank you, chat. Hope you enjoyed. Hope everybody's feeling hype. It's a great turnout here to enjoy this race. And this is a good time to just kind of mention again what we're doing. These are 3 teams running the different routes, so they're tied together by a column. There we go.
Yeah, the colors, the borders of their screens designates their team colors. So we've got red and Fox with the blue border, Riggs and DD with the pink, and Halation and Keat with the green. So those are the teams. One row is doing any percent no Lavos Shell Skip. The other is doing any percent with Lavos Shell Skip. That skip we'll talk about later. That's an endgame skip, but that's going to be the major difference between what these fine folks are doing. But we still have a little bit more gameplay left where they're going to still be on the same routes. But once we hit Chrono Castle, that's when things will start to deviate and we'll actually have a bit more variance to talk about.
Now, you talked earlier about not being able to walk away. This is the one stretch in the run where you could walk away for a minute if you wanted to. You get something like a minute and a half here. You don't have to do any inputs. You just let Glenn go to town with that Berserker against Flea, and Flea is not able to take any actions during that time. So this is wonderful, and the RNG manipulation is basically about getting as much damage from him through this sequence as you can. Flea has 4,120 HP here. And most of the damage is just done on autopilot.
Yep, and this is something that you can do pretty much no matter what. Even in casual play, like, if you just put the Berserker on Frog and enter this fight, like, you're probably going to get at least half of those hits for free, even if you're not on any sort of actual RNG script, just because of the way that Frog's speed matches Flea's speed and how the AI script works with the Berserker and Flea's counters.
And then we get to Slash, who, well, depending on how you count things, has a big spike on HP, boss. There's 2 phases. Slash 1 has 3,200 HP. Slash 2 has 5,200 HP. So you add those up, and it's actually even more than Magus. But, are we paused as Red Slash is he off RNG, maybe?
No, that's script.
Okay.
I think that's script. Oh. No. Yeah, he's fine. He's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he was just, maybe he had to pause for a second for other reasons.
That'll happen.
Yeah, no, he looks good. He looks good.
Now, Slash will do one of 2 things generally, but he does a lot of physical damage, so this is actually one where he can deal a lot to us. One of the benefits of the Berserker is there is a boost to your physical defense. So while Chrono would be a little more vulnerable on the unequip, Glenn is not.
Yeah, and it's extremely important in this fight because of how low your HP actually does end up getting. Thanks to how just, beefy Slash is with his sword. The first phase is relatively smooth. There's not really much that can go wrong, so to speak. Like, obviously you can always just go off script because of, missed inputs or whatever, but, in terms of, like, just the fight itself, it's pretty straightforward. You're just letting Frog, much like the Flea fight, you're just kind of chipping away with Chrono and Robo and letting Frog just do the heavy lifting with all these Berserker-infused crits. And then you'll have a little bit of menuing to do right before the fight ends, and you go into the next phase. Yep, and there was the menuing, and yep, there you go.
then it begins phase 2, where he grabs the sword. And
This is where things get really dicey.
Time, by the way. Let's just point out that we're an hour and a half in with 3 runs of the same fight.
That's pretty nice. Pretty nice timing. But yeah, there's a lot of mid-tonics being used at the beginning of the second phase. That, like, AoE / attack that he does right before the first phase ends, or to designate the end of the first phase, rather, pretty much puts the entire party at health risk. So you're spending most of that first part of the script just getting everybody back up to a health that's safe. And then it kind of goes back to the same thing that you were doing at phase 1, but you have to be a little more careful and do a little bit more healing just because of the counters that you get, and you know, just seeing how hard Slash hits when he does his higher damage tech attacks, the spin cut, for example.
So, real quick here, because Keith Ketchum is our last chance to mention it, Flea question mark only has like 1 HP, so as soon as you attack, it dies, and then it's going to do the MP Buster and take all your MP away. We let Glenn take that hit because he's preserved. He's not using tech points anyway, so it doesn't matter if they steal our MP. And that works out fine and keeps everything preserved. But also there's a menuing to line up Chrono's tech there as well.
Not to mention, Frog doesn't even have magic because we didn't bring him the Spekio to teach him magic. So it's actually super detrimental to Frog's character, you know, from a casual standpoint, because he's basically not earning any tech points at all. Well, he's earning them, but you know, there's no advancement in your tech tree.
He would still slurp and slurp cut at this point.
Yep, that's all he gets for the entire run. But we don't really use Frog that much after the castle.
No, he did come up more than 100%, but obviously we're not doing that today.
No, that's next month.
You want to promo that?
Probably in a bit when I get a little more detailed information on it.
Okay.
I should probably pull that up before I promo it, right?
Sure. Questing for Glory is coming up on RPG Limit Break, so if you're not already following, be sure you're doing that, because it's an outstanding channel with a lot of fantastic events like this that happen. And they've been very good to a lot of people, so hopefully you're following RPG Limit Break, and if you can't figure out who to use your Twitch Prime sub on, well, allow me to nominate them as an option.
It's a really good option.
This first hallway that Red Slash is now running through, I have nicknamed this the Hall of Unavoidables, because you're going to get all these fights in this hallway and there's nothing you can do about it. It's a shame because it feels like you'd be able to skip them, but no. No, you have to get through them. Doesn't mean you need to fight them, though. That's just crazy.
Yeah, it's one of the few sequences in the entire game where there's like literally no way to avoid the encounters. Like they almost always give you some sort of option to not take the encounters if you can find it. But this is one of the very few instances where it's just like, no, you guys, you gotta do these, sorry.
Also, to quickly answer a question in chat, are there routing differences between the categories at this point? Not as of yet.
Okay.
Alright, so here's where things start getting really interesting in Castle, and you can avoid a lot of encounters on these outside staircases by mainly making your movement careful. And what they're doing is not moving when the rollie is going past them.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of the sight encounter trigger that we were talking about earlier, in the sense that this is purely a contact trigger. Like, if the game doesn't register you touching any of the enemies on this screen, you will not get an encounter. And thanks to very slick movement, you can sneak by all those encounters very easily.
Just to clarify, that's with your lead character, because in fact, that's part of the avoiding one of those jerk birds is by using other sprites to move him out of bounds.
Yeah,
Right.
yep. You use the second character, in this case, Frog's character sprite, to move that last bird jerk. Well, the bird jerk doesn't like walking in the same like area as Frog, so he kind of just like magically floats off the platform and it just hangs in the air while you walk by. Very kind of him. Still a jerk bird, though.
They're all jerks.
Exactly. But yeah, since we have a little bit of a opening, I will now promote the next event. On Saturday, October 2nd, on this channel, we will be doing a Chrono Series relay. So instead of a race like this, where it's 6 runners and 3 teams, it's going to be 6 runners on 2 teams. It's going to be a Chrono Series relay this time. So we're doing Radical Dreamers, Chrono Cross, and Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger will be glitchless this time, running it on the Steam. Hundo glitchless on Steam, and Chrono Cross will be the any % good ending run. But it's going to be so much fun. If you guys have any sort of enjoyment for any of the games in the Chrono series, or maybe you don't know about Radical Dreamers, or you've thought about playing it and maybe you want to take a look, it's going to be really fun. It's a really cool speed run, super quick. I really recommend it to anybody that has like any sort of love for the Chrono series in general. So definitely check that out. Again, Saturday, October 2nd, on the RPG Limit Break channel is when we'll be doing that. So keep an eye out for that and make sure to mark it on your calendars so that you can check it out when we do it.
And if that's not enough Chrono Trigger for you on RPG Limit Break during Questing for Glory, Sunday, November 14th, there will be a Chrono Trigger run in Questing for Glory.
Seems to be a good season for Chrono. I'm all for it.
Oh yeah. So Ozzy fight. Well, Pulley fight. Ozzy is there.
It's more like a redecorating of his room than it is a fight. You're like, let me just open up some spaces here in the floor, and then, yeah, we're gonna get out of here.
As Halation goes through this outdoor section here, these movements are tight. They're very tight. They're not necessarily hard, but they're extremely unforgiving.
Yeah, you really don't have much to work with. All these corner edges that you see Riggs, like, doing, that's very hard. Because you basically have to have the sprite wrapped around the edge of that staircase on all of those. And if you even are a frame off, you're going to get caught and an encounter is going to start. And you can't run from any of the encounters on the outside staircase there. So you actually have to do the fights, which obviously is not ideal because you're slow.
Yeah, if you're practicing that, you'll honestly probably want to do it with save states so that you can do it a bunch of times in a row to get used to the movement.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, here we go. Red Slash has found his way past the 100 monsters of the castle, and here is Magus. A lot of experience available from a bunch of the enemies as well, if you needed it. The bats in the final corridor are actually a very interesting game, how much you get for them, but it's not part of any of the routes.
Yeah, I think mostly just due to the fact of how slow they're, like they're quick, and then they have a very slow attack animation. So unless you could like guarantee that you could get your attack off before any of them did, is you're just sitting there and it's that like, eat, and then like the character models dancing while they're getting drained of the HP, and it's just like 6 years later, you're like, oh, 1 attack's done, 5 more to go. Yay.
With Halation and Riggs on this juggler fight, it's basically designed to cause you to move between magic and physical primarily. So you can do the Hypno Wave and cause all 4 of them to be on magic and thus be able to hit them with physical. And then X Strike is with some boosting, just good enough to one-shot them.
And then Luca's crazy fire damage, casually doing almost 500 damage with her 2 MP magic attack.
Yeah, and part of that is the unequipment glitch that it's been boosted up. So, Magus fight here, as that is going on for Red Slash and soon to be going on for other runners. I'll let you get into as much detail here as you want, but bottom line is we want to manipulate these barriers so that we can actually do damage to Magus, and Glenn is just gonna smash.
Yeah, basically we want to make the RNG is absolutely essential here because, as we said earlier, the unequipped glitch does not protect us from fire. So if Magus does fire, you get hit, and you get hit hard. 2 fires would wipe your team. So you absolutely need to be on an RNG script for this fight because, you know, it's bad. It'd be bad. And then on top of that, you want lightning and shadow only, because as we alluded to, you don't have water. Frog does not have magic, so he does not have water. So you have no water attacks and no fire attacks in this party. So what we do is we use Frog to lower Magus's magical defense. Wow, say that 3 times fast. And then do the corresponding attack, whether it's slash or lightning bolt or I always call it robo roll, rocket roll, depending on which. And since the script has lightning and shadow only done for the first phase, you just pretty much take a little bit of damage and then crush Magus as hard as you can in 4 attack phases. And then he'll switch over to the dark matter. And from there, it's just a matter of just thumping him as hard as you can, attacking with Frog, slashing with Chrono, and rocket punching with Robo. And since you're on script, Frog is going to do crits like all the time. Like, you know, not everyone, but again, a lot of the RNG involves just trying to keep Frog on every possible crit opportunity that you can get in the script. In the RNG script, that is, not the actual route script. And if we do this correctly, Magus will only get off 1 dark matter. And you'll get him right before the second dark matter is cast. If the second dark matter is cast, it's okay. You're not going to get wiped, but you will lose party member and then be able to finish off the fight.
Takes a lot of effort to get through that 6,666 HP, but Red Slash has done it just as Halation gets into the fight. And Magus is kneeled. There's your defeat, Magus time.
You know, we've got Riggs and Halation almost synced again. Which is nice to have. It's nice to see the little differences between the runners and having that like basic side-to-side action, even though it's diagonally side-to-side right now.
So now just kind of the general outline of the Magus fight a little bit. In that phase 1, it's designed to have the rotating element barriers. You're not going to be able to do a lot of damage physically. So there, Glenn's only hitting for 54 on a crit versus 220 on a crit in phase 2.
Yep, absolutely.
And then it's just a question of who your party is, what elements you want to see, and one of the nice things about Dark is because it's only a single party member attack when he's on that barrier, it is not going to do as much damage. Even ticky-tack damage adds up eventually. But when it's only one person, it's generally faster, I think.
And I could be wrong, but I believe the Shadow, like the Dark Bomb attack, is actually the fastest animation out of his 4 magical attacks. I might be wrong on that, but I feel like that's right. So it's even, it's another extra little small benefit.
Alright, phase 2 for Halation. And Riggs.
And we've got almost everybody now in the fight. 5 runners, all fighting Magus at the same time. What a great Sunday. Why would you want to do anything else?
I could make a joke about ice cream here, but let's just try to trigger.
And then we've got Red making it through the end of the dream sequence. The actual other break that you get in the game, the whole dream sequence is input free, so you can completely leave and do whatever you need to do.
Just about 2 hours in, you may need to, stretch your back, your arms, something like that.
I just find it amusing how it's like runner friendly to have like the 2 breaks in the run like relatively in the middle of the run. Because you had, like you had alluded to before, you have that small break when Frog cuts the mountain in half, and then you get the dream break as well. And those are the only 2 real input breaks that you get in the run. So it's nice. It's nice right in the middle to have those 2 stops. Give yourself the time to do whatever you need to do.
Okay, Dactyl Nest is one of the worst games for avoiding fights, but it's still pretty important what you do. This first one here, you can't avoid it. It looks like you should be. It will tease you and make you think you can. You can't avoid that one. So your best bet is to trigger it as fast as you can. Then there is forthcoming a couple of very technical skips that are, as far as not using a glitch goes, the hardest skips of the game, honestly.
That's an interesting take. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, but they're definitely some of the hardest for sure.
Well, I'll put it this way: in terms of the glitchless route, they're the only 2 I can.
Fair. That's totally fair.
But that was the first one where you have to get to the right position behind the boulder. And this is the second one where you have to line up so perfect. And you can see Red Slash has already taken 2 attempts to set this up right before he gets it the 3rd time. That's how technical it is. It took Red Slash 3 times.
Yeah, it is very, very tight. You have like basically a line that you have to follow, and if you're off that line, even a frame, you're either going to be too far to the left and trigger the encounter, or you're going to be too far to the right and not be able to go up the ladder. So it's very tight. I don't know. I have some trouble with the ones in Tyranno Castle, so maybe it's just biased because I'm worse at them than I should be. But...
Most of them are, I think, going to be a question of how good you have your and then execute them.
Oh, that's the greatest thing about this run, and the game in general is just like it's so execution heavy. There's so little RNG that like just ruins your run. It's so nice to have like a game where it's all on you. The time you put in, the effort you put in, the practice you put in, it'll show. It'll absolutely show, because you won't have those runs where it's like, oh, well, this boss did that thing, and then I just had to, and that was the end of the run. Where like, oh, there was a skip, and it's a 50-50, and I didn't get it, so that was the end of the run. There's basically none of that in this game, and it's so refreshing.
Red Slash has entered the Tyranno Fortress. And we've got Keith Ketchum and Foxless wrapping up the Magus fight. They're both pretty close to being there.
Yep, and there's the knee for Fox. And there it is for Keat. Yeah, Keat has done a pretty nice job catching up after those early miscues.
Everybody's successfully through Magus now. These Reptites, we have a couple of these fights that are forced to get into, but again, just because we're forced into them doesn't mean we need to fight them.
And then Ayla's flawless break out of jail logic. Break into jail to break out of jail.
I mean, it works, doesn't it?
Just don't overthink it, it's fine. But yeah, on Halation screen now we'll get to see that skip again, and get another look at it. This one, I always felt like this one was the more difficult one, just because you have that rock just like staring at you, taunting you the whole time, like you're gonna miss and run into me, and then they're gonna get the encounter.
And the encounters with those monkeys are just the worst.
For me, I always had that's how that halation setup was what I like to use. Just to have that, like, there's like an actual like 90-degree corner in that darker part of the grass, and if you just line Chrono's foot up with that, it's like a seal deal every time. So
Red Slash real quick through the teleport floor. You just gotta swing a little bit on that outside floor to avoid. And then here's the skip you were probably thinking of in particular. No, I'm sorry. That's a different point.
yeah, no, a little bit. It's the next section.
Yeah, double
there's-
terrain.
Yeah, the Tyrannosaur or whatever they're called, Tyranno, or the chonkers. I just call them the chonkers.
Fight though, which would have been in right here. Now he's back for it, and this one is a great source of experience and tech points just because it's quick to kill, and they line up perfectly for Cyclone.
This would be where we would spend a lot of time grinding if this was a run that didn't have unequip glitch, because this would be the point in the run where you would absolutely not be able to continue any further from a battle standpoint. You're just so weak and so frail, you would never get through the Tyranno fight.
And there's also that this lets you get a significant chunk of tech points to set up stuff later.
Yeah, absolutely. 18 is a significant chunk for such a quick fight. You can get 100 tech points pretty quickly, and that's usually enough to get you into whatever the next tech is at that point in the run. Meanwhile, everybody else is various stages of the approach to Tyranno-Lair. I like how close the entire race has been so far. Really haven't had too much deviation so far.
So there you go. You kind of want Chrono lined up with the pole on the right side there. I actually judge it based on the floor and line him up, and we skipped 2 unrunnable encounters there.
Yep, a back-to-backer where you get the single chonker and then the double chonker. Very, very long fights if you get caught in them, so it's like almost assuredly a reset. Just reset the RNG and start over from the Nizbal 2 room.
And a lot of the rest of the skips in this dungeon are just a question of which part of the screen you're in, and instead of letting you walk in a straight line, the dungeon loves to make you. So at one point you can be on the top part of the screen, but then you've got to switch and get to the bottom part of the screen or you're going to get an encounter. So there's a lot of that happens in the background, and that's why you see them diagonally as much as you do here.
We've got red starting the Black Tyranno fight. We start the fight focusing on Azala. We want to get Azala down as quickly as possible. She's got some very annoying attacks, and the sooner she's down, the sooner the Black Tyranno drops its defense, and we can start wailing on that instead.
2,700 HP for Azala, 10,500 for the Black Tyranno, but you can't do much damage to the Tyranno yet.
Yeah, if you can also wait. There's actually a timer, and then eventually, if you don't kill Azala, the Tyranno will just drop its defense and start the countdown. But obviously, for speedrun purposes, we don't want to do that. That's slow and boring.
Yeah, in glitchless, they'll actually take advantage of that, and that Azala is vulnerable to status ailments. You use Hypno Wave in this fight, put Azala to sleep.
Yep. Yeah, it's so funny how status effects in this game are like not super important, but you can use them very advantageously against a lot of the bosses, which is kind of rare for RPGs. Usually it's the other way around, where the status effects don't really do much to boss fights, but you use them in your normal encounters, and it's used against you very often. But it's, almost every boss in this game has like a weakness to one of the status effects. It's just a matter of whether you have the groupings to use them and take advantage. Yeah, with that, Azala goes down, and we're just gonna basically out damage race the Tyranno here, because if you're on script, the second barbecue, as we call it, the second flame attack, will kill the party, but you're killing the Tyranno before that second barbecue happens. If you're on script, again, the caveat being that you're on script. It's one of the reasons why this fight is such a big run killer, is because there's really not much room for a backup. If you fall off script in this fight, you kind of just have to like either like overheal the whole team and just lose a lot of time that way, or just try again.
Okay, that was a very amusing kind of sync between Elation and Drunken Draconian. They're a floor apart, but the rooms look identical, and they're doing it at the same time, and that was a very amusing visual to me.
The unannounced sync. Never see it coming.
And Riggs gets the skip on there. Are we calling that the Chunker Skip?
I'm here for it. I'm definitely down. Because what they're called is too wordy. It doesn't have pop zip. It needs something that kids will be saying. All that stuff.
There's more than one path that you can take through there, but they're very narrow to be able to skip the encounters. It's not really something I can verbalize. It's more visual. You'd have to see the markers to get it. But basically, I don't know that it's pixel perfect for them, but it's sure close if it's not. Like
you don't have really any room to wiggle with in those sections. It's just like, here's your route, and if you don't follow it, you're gonna be starting over.
Now there is a save point. If even if you weren't on save anywhere, there's a save point that you could reload from. You'd even do that once or twice before picking up fights, because they're terrible.
Yeah, I would never in any like run setting. I would never want to actually take those fights. I would just want to restart. And we see now red in the post barbecue phase of the fight, and one of the things that doesn't seem very intuitive at first, but no one gets healed right after the barbecue. We actually want the Tyranno to eat the characters that have very little HP left, so that it doesn't gain as much HP back from the eating. And then after that's done, then you can heal and get your party members at the safe spots. But it's really only Ayla that or Chrono rather, that gets that treatment. Everybody else just kind of is left to their own devices, and then, as I said before, it's really close, but it'll be, yep, right there. GG's on the Tyranno fight for red. Right at the 1 tick.
And not too many runner differences in these routes, but let's point out that we do actually have one here with the Halation using Marley here.
Yeah, Halation and Riggs are both using Marl here.
I think that's a question of the different routes, because
right, yes.
Unless both have Marley in theirs, but as the top row and the bottom row are the same routes for those watching. So when I say they're on a different strategy between the same route, you can see Didi's got Luca there and Halation's got Marley, just to finish explaining that for anyone watching the video.
Okay, Halation's saying in chat that they're just used to Marl. Yeah, this is not, like, really too much of a deviance between the two strats. You're basically doing the same things, just with different animations that are about the same speed.
Yeah, there's a lot of the dual tech, so Ice Sword versus Fire Sword. Well, I don't know when Halation made the switch, but I'm guessing back in the grind fight, and then that's where you would have picked it up, because again, having the techs is not enough to have the dual techs. You have to actually be in a fight with both of them that you finish.
Correct, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that would have been because again, if you're doing everything right, you're not getting in any encounters after that double volcano reptile encounter.
I missed this, but we have Foxlisk is back to the Nisbel skip. So I think the route went wrong on Black Tyranno.
Yeah, probably. I did not see that either, but probably just a minor movement error. So I don't remember seeing them in the fight. I don't think they messed up the Tyranno fight. I think it was just movement related.
Makes me wonder if it was the Chonker fight then.
Those damn Chonkers.
Alright, let's see here. Fox is gonna hug tight. You want to cut that last corner short because that is what's skipping a fight. And you'll see the same thing. He'll cut it tight going left, because if you go down too far, you'll get a fight. Then you move in here. You want to be very careful getting in line with that pole, and there you go. That is, we said it before, that's a very unforgiving movement. That window is not wide.
It's not even really a window. It's more like a broken pane in your fencing. So tight. Like, I've had times where I thought I was on it, but I was like, you can actually skip the encounters, but not make it through the doorway, and actually push to the right instead. Like, that's how tight that is. It's silly. Oh, okay. Fox saying in chat that it actually was BT fight. That caused the restart. Yeah, that's what's rough about BT. Because of, like we showed with Red in the fight, like, you have so little time if anything goes off before that second barbecue hits, and like at any point previous to that, if there's any deviation, that's when you're gonna find out. And yikes.
Chad asks about an item glitch. We didn't really get into any item glitches yet.
I believe they're probably just referring to the unequipped glitch, because that's the glitch we use to prevent. That glitch makes it so we don't need to grind, because it gives us such a boost in magical attack as well as magical defense. That it makes it so we just don't need to grind. Yep. So,
make sure we get all these questions as best we can.
Absolutely.
And don't be shy. And if you've got something you're confused about, throw it out there. We got a lot of wonderful people in chat that can help, even if the commentators fall short. Also very important to talk to Plant Lady. Plant Lady is very vital to this run because we need her to secretly plant that little sapling with hope, and it's going to unlock things for us later.
Also, make sure you finish the text boxes, because you can, as we alluded to earlier in the beginning of the run, you can close text boxes by walking far enough away from the, NPC that you're talking to. And if you do not finish the text scrolling with her conversation, then she won't plant it, and then you'll be back to square one. Or back to square none, maybe.
Yeah, you'd have to go back and talk to her again, and there actually would be a chance to, even if you tell her to secretly burn it, I believe you can still go back and get it corrected. So Riggs had a little bit of trouble on that fight there, where Ayla's ATB got off sequence, but was able to finish it out. When you're relying on RNG manipulation, every little thing is so important.
It could have been something as simple as like a minor hesitation in a menu. It really doesn't take much to throw you off script. So, and that's one of the reasons why even the top runner will not really understand sometimes why they go off script, because it's like it might be something so minor that you didn't even notice it, but it doesn't take really anything at all to make it worse. Because like I'd said before, this is a common thing in all the fights. There's usually one character that is going to be riding all the critical hits, and in this fight it's Ayla. And you want them to be hitting those crits, because you're missing out on like hundreds of points of damage if you're not hitting those crits, and that's easily gonna give you another barbecue.
And that's really impressive when our runners can pull off a backup, because keep in mind, yes, it's incredible to stick to script the entire run, but in a marathon setting where you don't just have the option to reset and start over again when something goes wrong, being able to get back on track is pretty important.
Absolutely.
Era of Time unlocked, and this is the Dark Ages.
I like Antiquity Era. Sounds fancier.
Alright, so Glenn's going to learn Water Magic for Red Slash. But we still don't want to fight him. Too bad.
Yeah, it's not worth it. But now we start to see the actual variance between the NoLSS route and the LSS route, as you'll see the top runners, like the actual top row, not saying that they're better or worse, the top row of runners starting to get themselves ready for the skip, and then the bottom row, they will be continuing the story on for a little bit longer, so that we can power up the pendant and get some key items that we'll be using later.
So we talked to Plant Lady, for lack of a better term, and that enables this quest in 600, the Sunken Desert. Now, enemies here, their little quirk, if you will, is they're very difficult to hit for physical damage unless you use water magic against them. So your two options for that are Glenn and Marley. Although technically if you went through the sequence you could do Magus with Ice 2 as well. But that's the reason Red Slash went back to learn magic, is now Glenn has water available for this boss. And this is Red Knight And I am trying to scroll for what his HP is, and I don't even see it on my list here, so fun. Oh, there he is. Top section, 5,000 HP, middle section, 2,000, and bottom section, 4,800. But you do not want to kill the middle first.
No. The way that you ideally do this fight is you kill the top and bottom parts, and then kill the center core very quickly after so that it doesn't run away. Because you missed out on a lot of tech points and experience if you miss out on the middle.
It's very rewarding, and it's going to take damage over the course of the fight because you can see the other sections are draining that middle section for HP.
And hence why you see Red actually lightning bolting the center piece and healing it so that it doesn't die from the absorption attacks that it is doing to itself. Because again, you do not want that core to die first. You want that core to die last. Because Red Knight doesn't like the core dying first. Not a fan.
No, tends to basically put his own berserker on at that point, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. But we try and kill the bottom one first, mostly because it's kind of twofold actually. The attack animations are a little bit faster for the top side, and also they do a little less damage on average. Other than that, there's not really any specific need to do top or bottom first or second, because no matter what, the default is the center bit, so you have to go up or down either way. But as long as you're doing one or the other, it's going to be fine. But obviously, the script is the script, and you want to follow the script, so the script has this going down.
Yeah, so we've got, in line with the other bosses, we've got about 10,000 to deal in this fight over the two sections. And this can just generally be an unpleasant enemy, not properly prepared for the fight.
Oh, yeah. This section in general, for me, running NoLSS is like easily killed like the vast majority of my runs. And that's the NoLSS route, not the LSS route, which I think is a little tougher, to be honest, since you're a little, you're even less powered than you were in the LSS, or the NoLSS versus the LSS. You know, like Ayla has more techs, and you know, Marl has a stronger magic tech and whatnot. So.
Now, fun fact I don't know if we've touched on yet is this whole dungeon is actually optional. In the scheme of beating Chrono Trigger, you can beat the game without ever doing the side quest. Although, in the strictest sense, everything from the moment we got to the end of time for the first time is optional, but still.
Very boring playthrough. Let me grind for 3 days straight so I can beat Lavos at the end of time.
10 experience. Yeah, that wouldn't be pleasant, but you technically could. But yeah, you can play the game of Chrono Trigger and never have to do the dungeon. The biggest thing that we want is the reward for doing this dungeon, and that's going to make its presence felt very soon.
Yeah, the Green Dream is a crucial accessory that is absolutely necessary for the end of the game. We are not powerful enough to kill any of these end bosses, not by a long shot. So what we're going to end up doing is overflowing them to death, basically. We'll explain a little further in detail when we get that far. We're not there yet. As Red just wraps up the fight.
Elation has actually gotten it in a different location. I don't know if that matters.
No, it's the only thing that matters about the location for Ret Knight is you take damage every time you don't get him. So, like, when he appears out in the sand and you don't interact with him, the party takes 30 HP each. And this happens every time. So if it takes you 3 attempts to find him, you're taking 60 damage, and you're probably going to die because you're too low health. But yeah, that's absolutely something you need to keep in account when you're running, is to make sure that you absolutely hit Ret Knight the first time. And if you hit it second time, you're probably okay. But if you don't hit it second time, you need to, like, heal before you actually start the fight, or you're going to be dead.
As for the Golem, when our runners were dying to it, that's because it's faster. And the story will not require you to win that fight, so just faster to lose it.
So we'll see now Red starting to begin the setup for the skip, the shell skip. We've got a few things to take care of so that he's all ready to go before doing the skip, in terms of, like, item acquisition, etc., etc. But we're getting close now. It's going to be in the next few minutes. And then on the bottom side, now that we've unlocked the ability to use the pendant, we can go to pick up the safe helm, or I'm sorry, the swallow safe helm. Wrong playthrough. Pick up swallow, and which is a phenomenally powerful sword that is super broken for this point in the game. It gives you a huge speed boost. It's got, like, the 4th or 5th best attack value out of any sword Chrono gets in the game. It's so unfair.
Speed, right?
And it's super, super, super useful for what we're doing in the run, because it gives Chrono so much more hitting power. It makes a lot of these, not end boss fights, but the last boss fights with Ret Knight and everything going on in the Sunken Desert, it makes that a lot smoother because you get that extra power boost.
So Red Slash has gone through the desert, left Robo in 600 to help restore the forest. Then you pick up his remains from 1000, where Luca gets to fix him again. Didn't she just do this? And our reward will end up being the green drain, but a little bit more to get through before that.
Well, she's got to be pretty good at fixing Robo by this point, right?
You would think. Probably made her own twists on the design at some point, maybe rewired some things.
Improve AI that's, like, thousands of years older than you. It's casual science.
Technically thousands of years younger than her.
Or, yeah, yes. And we've got the one instance of time travel in the game that's character specific. Wrapping up this sequence so that we can get the green dream on the way back out.
Yeah, and there's a hint in the notes you could run back to read that would tell you the password is Laura. Well, actually, it won't even say it's Laura. It says it's the same name as my wife, which you're supposed to remember is Laura, even though nobody warned you there would be a quiz on that later. And then when you enter LARA, it'll work. We didn't mention that with XABY. We just told all the inputs at the same time.
Yep. Very convenient. Meanwhile, we've got Riggs down in the depths of the Sunken Desert, following the very tight, very annoying, very hard to keep RNG trail that has eaten up hours of my life. in preparation for the... You do this so that you can get Marl to have enough techs so that she can get to haste for
Haste.
the Lavos Shell sequence.
Haste is very fun and very broken.
Yeah, especially in a game where, like, there's really not much speed variation done with spells or effects at all.
Yeah, there's
Got a couple of accessories and a couple of swords that Chrono gets that boost speed, but that's pretty much it. Oh, and Luca's armor as well.
in the haste helmet.
A lot of black screens here. Okay, yep, there we go. It's like everybody's black screen.
Red Slash is grabbing an elixir that's very important to what we're going to do later on. As Fox goes and picks up the Swallow. And DD are still working on the Ret Knight fight here.
Yeah, it looked like DD kind of lost the script, but I think he's okay. Pretty sure it's safe. It's just gonna be off, so I might have to do... I don't know if he'll have to burn through some more resources or not to finish off the fight. Oh, there you go. Yeah, he'll be fine.
Got a nice crit there from Ayla. Good time for it, but the...
I believe the LSS route doesn't kill the core, if I remember correctly.
Well, faster if you don't have to.
Of course. Because again, the tech points aren't necessary anymore for the LSS route since you're not using... That's the last actual combat fight that you do. Everything else is glitches and skips. Sounds like a nice breakfast cereal, glitches and skips. And we have Red now currently going through a very detailed and intricate series of inputs and menus to trick the game into allowing you to, much like the end of time save anywhere skip, what we're trying to do is get it so that while the characters are warping, quote unquote, warping away, you'll see them, like, start to, as if they were going to go up in a gate. We want the characters to do that, but instead they're going to be going diagonally. And you'll see him pause buffering here. He's trying to get the text to stop on specific inputs, like specific letters. And if he inputs at the correct time, this will allow him to trick the game into being able to switch character members. And once he does that, he can then control the characters despite the fact that they're in the sequence of being gated away. In this case, being gated to the Lavos fight. While he's doing this movement, or while he's able to do this movement, then you can run around and through those gate trigger sequences actually just trick the game completely into skipping the fight. It's hard to really explain without going into a lot of detail of the code and like how the game understands like situations, but we're basically trying to overload the game with so much stuff happening that it just is like, you know what? I don't care. We're just gonna go straight past this shell fight.
I can't take any. Just fight the final boss.
But as
also, just to highlight this, because we'll see it once more for DD. When you go into the castle, the Chancellor shows up to talk to Marley. There's a whole side story going on there that there's a couple of scenes you can see if you're going back in there casually. Fox says he is in trouble, not sure quite what's happened yet. I would assume that means he's off script, though.
Yeah, he's off script. That Sand Cyclone is not ideal. The other thing I wanted to mention about the Shell Skip, a lot of that movement that you see Red doing is to actually get the characters, the second and third characters, to break away and not be in the normal positions they would be when you're running. So, like, you see right now on Halation's screen, when he's running, the character models for the 2 and 3 are starting to have weird spacing. And that's what we're going for here. Part of how this glitch works is to get those character models to not be in the spots they need to be. And that's why you're allowed to switch them around, because the game gets confused and is like, wait, the characters aren't here, so that means you can change it. Because it wants it to be fixed. And that's why right now you see Marl and Luca's character models going on all sorts of crazy weird directions. Like Marl's completely off the platform for a minute there.
So this would probably be a good time to explain what the Green Dream actually does, if you want to touch on that.
Absolutely. So the Green Dream is a accessory that any character can equip, and it does a one-time auto reanimate. This is super helpful in normal gameplay, obviously, just because a free revive is always nice. But in the context of the speedrun, you actually abuse the game mechanics, and while when the party gets wiped completely in these upcoming boss fights with Lavos, because we're just frankly not strong enough to take the initial attacks, the character that has the Green Dream equipped will be revived. And in the very tiny window of time before Lavos gets its next turn, we can use that to trick the game. Again, we trick the game a lot. The game's very gullible, and we take advantage of it. It's very silly brain. And we trick the game into believing that we can use items on enemies. Because normally in Chrono Trigger, you are not allowed to use items on enemies. You can't give them potions, you can't use, revives, nothing. Items are only for characters specifically. But using this glitch, we trick the game into allowing us to use items on the enemy. So we use this to take an elixir and give a full heal elixir to the boss. But the game can't handle that. It overflows the HP of the boss and kills it. And this is what we do with both Lavos Interior and the Lavos Core. So it's absolutely essential that we have the Green Dream to use this auto reanimate. Otherwise, we would not be able to do any of this. All of this wouldn't even matter, because we wouldn't be able to finish off those 2 boss fights. Because you'll see when we get there, it does like 4 figures worth of damage to all the characters, which we don't even get. HP max is at 999. So.
2 little things I'll add to that. The elixir is essential because it has to be able to do enough healing, and that's the only item that will do enough healing for this to work. And the other thing is, you can't just do this to any boss, because their HP has to actually be high enough for the overflow to work. So if you somehow, some way, had a Green Dream on Yakra and an elixir, and you died to him intentionally to use the elixir, it actually would not kill him, which means clearly Yakra greater than Lavos.
Obviously. I mean, Yakra survives and Lavos doesn't, so.
Yakra doesn't survive.
Well, he does in this scenario, because we never go back and take care of him.
Alright, you make a point there. Alright.
So yeah, we've just basically got all the guys on the top side now trying to get the skip. And as I said, you have like 3 different things we're going for at the same time. We're trying to get the character models to break from their normal positioning. We want to stack multiple text boxes of gates. That's why you see the Tyranno Lair, or the Bangor Dome, and the Sorry, Tyrant Fortress skips. Oh. Halation has the... So basically now that Halation has the... Oh, yep. I think we've got it here. So Halation got the ability to change the character's positioning and allowed them to continue to move even despite that. And Chrono, with the ability to move, even though the gate is activated and you're being gated away, run up to those positions that Halation was. The game has no idea what the heck's going on, so it's like, you know what? We're just skipping the shell. We're just skipping it completely. So there you go. Halation, great job.
And into Lavos Shell. Here comes the fight with Inner Lavos. Course has the 3 pieces and absolutely no resemblance to any anime character / villain of any series that may or may not have dragon in the title whatsoever.
You're
None.
fired. Thanks for playing. Yeah, we don't talk about that.
The Inner Lavos, the 2 arms and the body, and he's going to open up with the laser beams attack, which is a nice big damage AoE.
Just casual 2k damage to everybody. So as I said before, Green Dream revives our good friend Frog, and because the game's confused, we take advantage and use the elixir on the inner core. And you see how it went from the item screen, he clicked on elixir, and then it went to his text screen. The game thinks that you're trying to use Frog's slurp cut, but you have the elixir selected. That's basically what happens. You trick the game into allowing you to use a item in the tech slot, and it uses the item instead of the tech. And then the overflow glitch happens. Wow, and then as if Halation opened the floodgates, and now everybody's doing it. Halation was doing it before the cool kids were. But yes, now we've got Red also in the inner fight. We've got DD looking to get that as well. But again, we're going to have the same thing here. There's no AoE kill-all attack here, so we have to wait a little bit more before we can actually get it. But the script here is pretty simple. Chrono dies first, and then Ayla will get smacked. And then Frog will queue up an attack. Or not an attack, Frog will queue up and then get attacked, rather. And then now that there is enough ATB on his bar, be able to use the elixir and use it on the right bit, and there you go. GG. It's going to take a bit. The game gets really confused here and really tries hard not to die. But yep, that's going to do it for Halation. GG's on that one.
Yeah, Red Slash.
So that's a really solid time. 2:37 is a very good time. So no one's won yet, though. The race comes to a win when both team members finish. So Keep needs to finish before before Team Green wins, or Team Aussie rather. Sorry. But we've got Red just about wrapping up as well. Just finishing up the glitch. There we go. GG's to Red.
We also have Riggs working through the Lavos Shell fight now, and this is where you see a couple of things really pay off. One, he picked up that swallow, so he's got the extra damage on Chrono, and the tech point grind back at the Tyranno Fortress enables us to have Falcon Hit now, and Falcon Hit is wonderful against a number of these Lavos forms.
No, they're really, really nice. Really nice for all the reasons you said. We've got actually a pretty sweet race brewing here because Red and Halation are finished for their teams respectively, but DD is still working on his skip. But Riggs is in the lead right now off of the NoLSS runners, so it's still anybody's game right now. Looks like Fox needs to get a little bit more experience or MP. Oh, yep, tech points, yep.
Ooh, that's a tough one right now. I mean, I have no idea what the backups would be. I'm trying to think of what you'd have access to that would be good. We wouldn't really have any of the in-game dungeons, so other than like the first floor of Sunken Desert, I'm not sure what would be any better for tech points.
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best at this point in the run. Because ideally you would do it at the Tyranno Lair, the one we were talking about, the double volcano Rat Knight fight. That would be the ideal grind point for tech purposes at least.
That's destroyed and we can't get back to it, so...
Yeah, unfortunately, so... Yeah, this is probably their best bet.
But he's once you've already done them, though, then they're not designed to respawn. So there's.
I think what would be the best way to go about that?
600. We're sealed off from Dark Ages, so we can't do Mount Woe yet. Future, you could get into the sewers. I don't know.
There's no good tech points in the sewers, unfortunately. It's all like 1 or 2. For the encounter.
Go through in my head what eras we have open.
I feel like probably prehistory, 65 million would be your best bet at this point because you've got hunting range and the dactyl nest. Those would probably be the 2 best spots.
Rubble fights, asks chat. Don't think we could do any. Because we'd have to do the Epoch quest to be able to get back to Dark Ages and do that. So, unless there's a glitch that you can get past the seal.
Yeah, no, not. I don't think there. I'm not aware of anything that is. But meanwhile, we've got Riggs restarting the shell fight, and Keat is on his way to resetting or to finishing up the Fiona side quest.
Now, this one that Fox is at is a really quick fight. This will come back every time, so he can just run up the screen, come back down, and this will respawn. It's worth... I'm thinking 4 tech points, but I guess we'll see when it's over. 200 experience, 8 tech points. That part's good.
Yeah, that's probably... I mean, there's probably some better stuff, like I said, in Dactyl's Nest or the Hunting Ground, but that's probably slower than this overall. Hannibal, no. This race is composed of just the 6 runners you see on the screen. The top row is runners that were running Lavos Shell Skip, and the bottom row is runners that were running no Lavos Shell Skip. The blue, pink, and green borders around each player's screens show you what teams they are. So the blue screens are Team Slash, the pink screens are Team Flea, and the green screens are Team Aussie.
So Riggs is taking care of business against this Lavos Shell. DD has just wrapped up the Lavos core fight. So, right now, team advantage is in the middle. But GG to our runners in the top row, all giving us a fine show.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with sub 245 shell skip. That is a very difficult skip. It used to be task only. It wasn't even possible when it was first found to be done by humans. It took us some time to figure out how to do it. And at first it was a meme where it was like you had like a 1 in 4 chance to get like a frame perfect input, otherwise you couldn't get it. And then like to now where it's like basically a 50-50 to get the right inputs. So it's a much safer skip nowadays than it used to be. Like a few years ago, you would never be able to do this run in a marathon or streaming kind of setting where you like are definitely trying to finish your run. I'm not sure, Halation. That's a good question. I think DD would probably know better. I know that he was deep in the grinding of that back when that was happening.
Keat now able to pick up the green dream. One of the nice things about this Lavos is that you get to menu in between each fight, so you're not really worried about running out of resources or anything through it.
To answer chat, that is done to a small extent, but it's not as important because a lot of the fights are done without any MP really used or very little MP. It's not until the Tyranno and the Giga Gaia fights where you're like spamming Falcon hits, heart. That everything before that, you don't really. It's all like one. It's like one tech that you use in the fight, or like 2 techs, and it's like 4 total MP. There's not a lot of MP being used in these fights, and since we're doing shell, it's not as important. Or we're not shell. We're doing elixir glitch, so you don't need anything after that either.
All right. Now we have another runner onto the Lavos Shell. Catching the second to arrive, and Fox still trying to work a backup strat on the fly, which is not fun.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm assuming what happened was the core ran away for Fox. That's my guess. I unfortunately didn't see the how the fight went. But that would be my guess, because if you the core is 100 tech points. So
Okay,
if you missed that, then that was probably what that would be my guess is what was missed. So, and it's not easy to kill that center bit even on script, because if you're off by a little bit, it'll run away because it doesn't give you much time.
Yeah, he's gonna need this and one more fight to get enough tech points for haste.
But we've got both Keat and Riggs in the shell sequence now. Keat just starting it. So it's still anybody's match.
I only just now thought of another backup fight for tech points, but I'm not sure how useful it would be. We left one of the gin bottles behind in Hecarim's cave, and that's actually worth a very deep amount of tech points. Can't remember the exact number, but it's a pretty good fight for that.
Pretty sure that fight is negated once you run away from it, though. It doesn't respawn, does it?
We skip a second one.
Right, but what I'm saying... Oh, you're talking about the one we actually skipped, not the one we run away from.
Correct. Not the first one, but the
Right.
the second one.
Yeah, the one with the Zeal box in the room.
Yeah.
It's probably too slow just to get to it. That would be my guess.
And it's only a singular fight. If you were doing both of them, that were like 40 experience, that'd be a different story. But no, I think he was in the right place for that. I just don't think anything else would have been fast enough to get to and do over and over again.
Yeah, I personally probably would have just, like, reset and eaten the time loss from that. Just redid the fight, basically. Because even though the fight's over, it's just like, you're going to lose so much time getting that MP that it's almost... You're probably going to spend the same amount of time just redoing the fight correctly. But I understand just wanting to move on, because that whole sequence is so frustrating in NoLSS. Is that you do any of that off script, you have to redo it all over again. All the fights, you can't... It's not like you can save right before Ret Night. You have to do that whole sequence over, all 3 of those encounters.
So with a number of these refights, it's just we're that much stronger and we've got better resources, better techs available. Like you can just throw out Falcon Hit, and against anything that delay, you're crushing them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the run, is just being able to spam Falcon Hit.
This is the Black Tyranno refight for Riggs. And bringing out the haste. I guess as soon as defense drops, the plan is throw as many Falcon hits in as possible.
Yeah, this fight is basically just like haste everybody up, and then, oh.
Well, stand by.
Hold on here.
Chance. Keep catching him. Taking care of some business there. Up to Nizbal. Riggs still fighting Black Tyranno here.
Yeah, you actually, you Chaos Azala with Marl, and we actually missed that part of the sequence of the fight. But yeah, you do that to just kind of throw Azala off until the defense drop happens. And then, yeah, you just spam Falcon hits until the cows come home.
Well, they'll do that whenever they get thirsty.
High maintenance, the team that finishes first. So at this point, it's whichever of the 3 runners that are left finishes first, that team wins. The teams are columns. So the blue squares, the pink squares, and the green squares. Those are all teams respectively. So the winner is whoever wins out of these 3 runners.
And some tremendous efforts from Riggs has put him and Didi in the driver's seat at this point.
Yep, the much familiarity to any NoLSS runner is the horrible Lavos Shell grind. Because if you go off script on like any of this, you're restarting from the beginning of the shell sequence, not just the one fight. Like, you have to do the whole shell all over again. So it's rough. It's a really rough sequence. It's so hard. You have so little, like, there's so many times in the route where you have frames to get the inputs in correctly, and if you go off, then you're just dead. Because as we'll see when we get to the actual fight with the shell, you need, not only you need everybody's health to be where it needs to be, the shell has to attack specific characters, otherwise it's all dead. Like, you need Marl to die, and then you need Ayla to die, and then I'll give Chrono enough time to finish off the shell.
Riggs is on this strange monster that we have not seen before.
Yep,
So,
Giga Gaia.
far enough to see Giga Gaia.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, we don't have to do this fight in the actual fight, since we never return to Zeal. Magus throws us out the club, and we're like, you know what? Your club sucks. We're going somewhere else. And we never come back.
So theoretically, if we kill Lavos, does Magus know it?
Yes, because Magus just like hates Lavos so much that he can like sense him, like Jedi sense Sith and whatnot.
So one of the great things about the Giga Gaia refight is they line up for Falcon hit all three. Of course, on the vanilla Giga Gaia fight, you can only hit the arms or the face.
Yeah. It makes it so much quicker because you get to do all that extra chip damage to the core while you're hitting the hands, and it makes I love Falcon Hit. Falcon Hit is amazing. It's so good. It's so broken. So OP.
So OP. Two people will get that. But meanwhile, some awesome things. Dying, thank you so much for restreaming all this, because these things don't happen without restreamers. And a big thank you to RPG Limit Break for making the time and channel available to us for this show. Thanks all of you who have chilled with us for the last few hours. Hope you have enjoyed everything so far.
Now we've got Riggs in the actual shell fight, and as you can see, already off to a gloomy start with everybody getting moped by the initial destruction rains. But thanks to the Lapis, that we get everybody back up to a reasonable health total. And now we're gonna try basically what we're doing is Chrono's got the Berserker, and he's just gonna go ham. And the other two members of the party are basically just trying to keep everything held together as long as possible so that Chrono can end up finishing off Lavos before Lavos gets another destruction off. And much like all the other fights we were talking about previously, one character just rides the crit RNG all the way through the fight, and this time it's Chrono. And as I was alluding to before, Lavos needs to kill characters in a specific order for this fight, because if he does that fine attack on Ayla or Chrono, you're resetting. So.
Chad asked about doing the glitch on Lavos Shell, and we touched on this earlier, that the enemy has to have enough HP for Elixir Glitch to work.
Yeah, and actually, the Lavos Shell has 10k, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember the exact cutoffs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Is it binary? Is the cutoff? It has to be. Okay, there we go. Chat's answering me. Yeah, it's the binary of 65k, which is not exactly binary, but roll with it anyways. So, it has to be high enough that you'll go over 65k on the heal to get the overflow. And
it looks like we have a dead shell on Riggs' end. Yep.
Nice.
Good job. GG's there. Perseverance is impressive. You know, it's so easy to like lose your shell run and just be like, I don't want to do this. It's reset. So it's very impressive to see somebody have to grind their way through it. And now we have everybody in the shell fight too, which is nice. It's good. Very, very close race today. I'm really happy about that.
Riggs is right here, the chance to finish strong. point. I think that's Giga Guy he's on now.
Yes. Yeah, Keith's just in Falcon hit spam mode now at this point between Giga Gaia and Black Tyranno. It's like, oh, what is it, like 18 Falcon hits between the two boss points that you do? It's a lot of Falcon hits. And I'm here for it.
Nice. Fax is just gotten to the mouse immune phase. Funny how much we can use that Berserker for in speed runs.
Berserker and Green Dream are the two most important items in the speedrun, without question.
Well, I mean,
Berserker carries us to Lavos, and Green Dream finishes it off.
Somewhere for the unequipped glitch.
Yes.
Alright, that's past Inner Lavos and on to Lavos Core.
Again, it's just just like the Lavos Shell Skip ones, these elixir glitches are all the same. It's just a matter of everybody getting wiped and then using the elixir, making sure that your ATB is in a good spot, so that Lavos doesn't get its turn before you do.
And it requires enough speed in the character using the elixir, doesn't it? Like
It's not a requirement for a specific speed value, it's just you have to have, like, you might have to have the character in, like, the third slot instead of the second slot if his speed's different. You can't be too fast. Like, I think 13 is, like, the max speed that any character can have to actually still pull off Elixir Glitch. Riggs misinputted. Oh, no.
I think he accidentally used the elixir on Glenn.
So yeah, now he'll have to redo both elixir glitches, unfortunately.
I don't think that's gonna be too bad for him, though.
Oh yeah, neither of the other teams are past the shell yet, so he's still in the lead, but you hate to see it happen.
On Inner Lavos, obviously, there's not going to be any manipulation because he's going to open with the death lasers. On Core, is it going to make any difference?
It might make a slight difference, but as you saw him switch Frog to third party instead of second party, that should be enough to fix the problems that would happen. I don't believe you have to really do anything drastically different in the final Lavos fight to get that to happen. Because again, you're always going to get those attacks, like really the only difference is what the actual, like, middle part, the middle bit will do, and how that affects it. But either way, Frog, as long as Frog dies last, that's all you're looking for.
And Chad asked a question, what version of Chrono Trigger is being played? This is the SNES version. It's the only version that allows the equip glitch. The Steam the Steam version, you can't do that.
Yeah, most of the glitches only work on the Super Nintendo version of the game. The PlayStation version is too slow with all the loadings and stuff. The DS version doesn't have any of the skips or glitches, really. There's been a few people who have been looking into learning the run and, like, routing it out, but it doesn't have the glitches. And the same thing with Steam. It's all that stuff is all patched out and fixed up.
And also won't work on the Japanese card, if I understand that correctly.
The Japanese version has different effects on Unequipped Glitch, so it's not as powerful. And there's been some routing that has made it somewhat faster, but I think to date, the NTSC version is still the fastest version for any percent, whether it be LSS or no LSS.
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool.
And GG to Riggs, and Team Flea is going to take down the race. Congrats to Team Flea.
I would say that was a bit of a come behind, but very well done from Riggs. He ran a very clean run all the way through. Did have to do Lavos twice, but had that buffer from running the rest of it well.
And also the super smart safety save after beating Shell, but that's pretty much what every single runner does that does no LSS, because who the heck wants to redo Shell fight ever? Not me.
No one.
No one ever.
Kate Ketchum has gotten past inner Lavos, and here comes the Lavos core fight.
And Fox is happily snug in Falcon hit mode, as we all are.
It's wonderful to have access to that. It just makes things better.
It really does. It's just like I said, it's so broken, and I love every second of it. Even casually, it's broken. Like when I played this for the first time for my wife, someone who had no real video game experience, even she was like, "This is a really broken move, isn't it?" I'm like, yeah, it is.
So that was a victory for Team Flea, wasn't it?
Correct. I'm not sure on the final time for Riggs. I wasn't paying attention to the timer, but I assume it was somewhere around 3:04.
Lavos Shell was 3:02.
Oh, 3:02, even better. Ah, okay. Thank you. Dine has it in chat. Nice. Yeah, 3:04 is a nice time for a marathon, or a marathon setting, so to speak.
And GG Key.
Yeah, Riggs, you can have Frog in 2 or 3. There's some variance to it, but it can work in either one. And Keat with the GGs. And that brings Team Aussie to a finish. And we'll see how Fox does with the final edges of the Shell Rush.
2 minutes over the course of 3 hours is not a very wide margin. So, a fantastic race.
Oh, absolutely.
Show for us.
Yep, we're running it back, Keat. I hope you're ready.
A question in chat. They thought that the Tyranno had high defense until Azala died. No, I won't say they're independent of each other, but you can lower the defense without. If you really want to see it dramatically different, look at the glitchless fight, and you'll see that they actually don't even kill Azala. They just focus on the Tyranno.
Yeah, it's actually linked to a timer, that defense drop. Which the timer, it's basically like either whether the timer goes off or Azala dies, whichever one comes first. That's what sets the time, that like part of the AI script to start. But yeah, this is really impressive from everybody, because everybody was struggling with something at some point in their runs, and everybody still powered through and finished. And you know, it's always impressive to see people struggle and defeat what's getting them down.
And Fox working on bringing it home against Gigagaya form of Lavos. A number of Falcon hits later.
Many Falcon hits later.
There you go.
And then, as I had said, we can let's re-advertise while we have a moment here. So, in terms of upcoming events, on October 2nd, on this very same channel on RPG Limit Break, the Chrono community will be doing a second Chrono Series relay. This time will be 2 teams of 3 members, and they're going to be racing Radical Dreamers, Chrono Cross, and Chrono Trigger in that order. Chrono Cross will be the any % good ending route, and Chrono Trigger will be 100% glitchless on Steam. So for those of you that are big fans of glitchless, or that play it on Steam and were thinking about maybe getting into the speedrun, but you don't have a Super Nintendo cart and don't want to spend $200 to get one, check out the glitchless Steam runs. Very fun, very interesting and engaging, and we'll be here for that on October 2nd, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern on RPG Limit Break. So definitely come and check that out.
The glitchless times have actually come down a lot in the last year. There's been several people doing the speed run in 2021, and I think the world record's been broken a couple times.
Yeah, there's been a lot more interest shown in the glitchless community as of late. I think a lot of that just has to do with the fact that, you know, the glitched runs are basically established. You know, there's not really much. It's not much left to route out. Like these runs are. I mean, as you guys have seen, these runs are so optimized. They're so tight. Like every fight is like just razor wire thin. You know, there you go, right there. Ayla is at 1 HP right now. 1! That's how tight these scripts are. That's how good that you gotta be. So, it definitely makes the most sense to, you know, get into glitchless if you don't feel comfortable with that. Uh-oh. What are we missing?
If he needs HP, probably go Kiss. Tech, actually, I would guess, but he's got a mid-tonic. I guess it was, do I go all...
No, he's missing... Uh-huh.
Guess we'll throw off RNG. Fair. Is he supposed to have a full tonic there?
Yeah, you grab that, chest in the sunken desert that has that full tonic.
Ah. And that's
that sucks. Yep. Unfortunate. Yeah, that was enough to throw off the RNG. I don't think it was the actual mid-tonic that did it. I think it was just the pausing in between. I think that the RNG moved forward. Yeah, exactly, Fox. I think you would have had it if you had just been able to immediately spam the mid-tonic when you would have used the full, but that, like, delay, that's all it takes. Just, like, a couple of frames of delay is all it takes to bump the RNG. But, you know, Fox still GG's. You know, a lot of people would have just dropped out. So you did a great job carrying it through. This game is so unforgiving when you make mistakes. So
giving us a rarely seen ending.
Yes, we get the good ending for once. Lavos finally wins. That plucky space bug. All right. But yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody want to jump in, runner-wise, to chit-chat? I think that would probably be the only other thing we could do before calling it for the evening.
I'll say this also in chat. Not only was Dine doing the restreaming, he was keeping track of these splits in this spreadsheet, which many of you were following. If you weren't following it, then take a quick peek at that to see how much work he was doing behind the scenes this whole run. It was fantastic.
That's crazy. Yeah, Dine's awesome. But yeah, everybody, please follow everybody involved. Runners, restreamers, everybody behind the scenes. Follow my fellow commentator. This is the best speedrunning community, period. So get in, have some fun with us. We love newcomers. We love talking. We love teaching. We love new runs. We want more community, more fun. So join the Discord. Have a blast. Play the game. It's amazing. You all know. But you should still play it more anyways, because it's Chrono Trigger. Why wouldn't you?
Always more Chrono Trigger. Chat, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hope you've had as much fun as we've had. It has been quite an event to get here. Appreciate a chance to be a part of it. Thank you for having me. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you to all the commentators and the runners. It was a super close race. Lavos just being Lavos in the end. As the commentator said, we will be having the Chrono Series Relay on October 2nd. We will be back next weekend for the finals of the Chrono Cross Links at Fort Dragonia tournament. We have the losers semifinals coming up, as well as the finals the next day after. Thank you everyone for showing up. This is such a good turnout, good commentary, good runs, a lot of on-the-fly decisions. It's always nice when we can do community events like this. I'm going to be throwing it to the free enterprise channel. They're doing some Final Fantasy IV randomizers. Thank you everyone for coming out. Have yourselves a good night. Hope to see you again soon. Streams